Good evening everybody and welcome to round 2 of the FSR Championship from Sepang International Circuit in Malaysia, one of the Herman Tilke design circuits. We're just getting underway in qualifying 1 and alongside me again today, everybody on their outlaps at the moment, is Chris de Jong.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to you, Chris. And what different circumstances are we going to see this week? And a very different circuit to a couple of weeks ago in Bahrain. Different challenge for the drivers this weekend.
Yeah, definitely a different challenge, and we see a shiny new name, not to FSR, but on the grid this year. It's Jaakko making his re-entry into FSR, so that's nice to see. But on the conditions, there will be well, a lot of different strategies, and let's see.
Yeah, there certainly will. We've seen another new name tonight as well, Jaakko, who is joining a very famous iRacing racer, I believe, but his first foray into FSR. It'd be interesting to see how he gets on. He's looked very good in practice, perhaps behind, well, you can see 3 names above him there on the timing sheets, and those are currently how they ended practice. So we've got Morgan Moran and Kirchhoff and Paresis at the top, but up there in 4th position, Jaakko, not doing himself any harm at all, and of course ahead of Bono Huis in practice, so we can keep an eye out for him, Chris.
Yeah, at the moment they're all looking for a spot on the track to get as clear as possible lap in. At the moment Bono is just crossing the line. Jaakko will set the first time of the day. Yes,
he certainly will. He's just going through turn 2 now and looking very hooked up at the moment. You'll notice that the 2 tyre compounds this weekend are the medium and hard. So that's the white sidewall tyre and the orange sidewall tyre. The white sidewall tyre being the medium, the softer of the 2 compounds, and the orange sidewall tyre for the hard. And that's Kirchhoff going through a first sector. A very nice and tidy first sector there. It's great to see Kirchhoff back in FSR. We know that he is a tremendous talent, and he's driving for the Avid Chronic Racing team, who are quite new to FSR, so it's great for them to get such a big name, as there's a car that's gone off there, I think on the outlap.
It was Martin.
Yes, Carlos Martin off on the side of the track then, so he's gone off. I think that was on the outlap actually, because I don't think he was ahead of Kirchhoff on the track. I think, as you say, Kirchhoff was coming around to be the first to complete a lap. We'll watch Kirchhoff here through the 3rd sector that he's entered in now. Very difficult here to Chris to get out onto the back straight. It's a really tough corner, this turn. I think it's turn 13. Yeah,
it is, and Ats had a major lock up there, but it's nice to see his driving style. It's always so smooth, and he's like the Jensen Button, but only a bit quicker than Jensen Button, I believe. He's a really smooth driver.
Well,
makes the exit work though, and I'm curious what his lap time will be. 33.7, so nice opening banker lap for Kirchhoff here. Keithley with a 34.2 responding, but 5 tenths off.
Yeah, seeing a lot of cars in the 34s at the moment. Kirchhoff the only man into the 33s. 3 separate drivers on 34.2s, as well as Patrick de Witt moves himself up into 3rd place with a 34.1, Marcel van der Linden 34.9, and the times tumbling, as you can see, as we get more and more drivers coming across the line. Masciuli there with a pretty slow lap in the Ash Racing car, 135.7. I think that's going to be fairly close to the back of the grid. Van Starkenberg into 34.1 though, goes up into 3rd spot, but Jaakko with a great first lap, and then Kostadanov now up into 2nd.
Yeah, remarkable times here, and all so close of each other. The top 9 is in between half a second with each other, as Morgan Moran is coming up to the main straight to complete his first lap. Curious what the time will be, and it's at 33.6, claiming first position at the moment. Brilliant lap from Moran there.
Yeah, certainly is, and it'll be interesting to see. I think we can see already that Moran and Kirchhoff are going to be hard to beat today. Bono Huis is going to be an interesting one to watch. Jim Paresis is on a decent lap at the moment, although he's a little bit down on the sectors. He's finished that lap, 134.083. So it's in 5th place. It's not bad. But with Bono Huis, interestingly, has not set a lap yet.
No, he aborted his first lap he was on, and Well, it's the same as same story as it was 2 weeks ago. He had difficulties in the Q1 as well, and with only 3 minutes to spare in Bahrain, he had his first lap in. And let's see what he can make of this. He already finding some traffic on the way.
Yeah, it's interesting this, Chris, because we remember Bono, of course, for the last 3-4 years has been so dominant in FSR. Why do you think it is that he seems to be struggling a little bit this year with the car, a little bit more so than the last few years?
The cars, and obviously the mod has completely changed, and therefore everyone has to start over again. And I think the differences are not that gigantic, but it's just the tiny differences that allow the pack to close up. And at the moment, it's just Morant that has the better edge of the two. But yeah, the season has just begun, and it's interesting to see where it leads. But considering last race, Morant definitely had the edge over Bono.
He certainly did. I think Bono certainly in the race looks fine, but it just seems to be the qualifying where he's struggling to get the times a little bit more. Although a 1:33.9 there, so he slots into 3rd place. But again, he's still 3/10 down on Morgan Moran. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but last year you would not have expected Huis to be that far down on Morgan.
No, but this was a bank lap. I'm sure Bono will increase a little bit more from this, and he came up to some traffic. So let's give him the positiveness of the doubt. We can never underestimate his talent. He's going out on track once again, and if I calculate correctly, he will be able to set 2 more laps. Although 2 fast laps on these type of tires will be near to impossible to have your 2nd lap being the best one, because they degrade so hard.
Yeah, certainly. Well, Ivar Calamies needs a good lap. We remember, of course, he didn't make Q2 in Bahrain, and he's again in that position in 11th place at the moment. So this needs to be a good lap by Calamies. He's coming out of the final corner, though. So let's see if he can set a faster lap time as he comes across. I don't think this is going to be that good.
Yeah, twitchy exit there.
And it's not enough.
No, you were right. And instantly pushing the brakes out to the max to get straight onto the track again. It's important for him as well to at least get to Q2. He will certainly expect this from himself, but obviously the team is expecting this from him too.
Yeah, certainly are. It's 2 minutes and 10 seconds to go. He's just gone out again, so he will have time to get in another lap, probably, although there's a lot of traffic ahead of him, and he can't really afford to slow down that much on the outlap, because, as I say, there's not a huge amount of time to spare. As Morgan Moran has just set a 1:33.552, so he's improved his lap time by another 1/10 of a second, as Jim Parisis has popped up into 3rd place. Bono Huis down to 4th now, so another 1:30 man into the 1:33s. It's very, very close up there. A 1/10 of a second separating 4th to 6th, and only 2/10 of a second separating 4th to 8th.
That was what I was about to say as well. It's immensely close. 1/10 in a sector can make either the difference between P13 or P8, and at the moment it's the common names to WC that have the edge over the others, but definitely Ivar Calamies should be able to work himself out there with a decent lap.
Certainly should. It's not great actually though for the Precision and GT Omega stable, because if you look at it, Jack Keithley is only 100th ahead of Ivar Calamies, which is what Calamies needs to beat, but that was just not one of the other cars out, so it's not going to be great either way you look at it.
Ivar is looking for a spot now for to have a clear exit out of the last turn. He does have another car up ahead of him, 3 seconds in front of him. But let's see, it's do or die for Ivar at this stage.
Thing is, it just shows as well in FSR that there is no room to rest, because if you look at the gaps, I mean, it really does show that you do have to practice, because if you don't, I mean, you look at Bono Huis, for instance, the current world champion, who's up there in 4th place, and you would expect will easily get through to Q2, but if he hadn't practiced, you know, just those extra few laps, you know, if he was 3/10 slower, he'd be outside the top 10, so you've really got to make sure you're working hard, haven't you, Chris?
Indeed, but that's fair to say, and but then again, it's also fair to say that this is the top pinnacle for online racing, at least in Air Factor 2 for now. This is the top competition, so you would suggest the gaps were this close, but it's nice to see that they actually are. So Calame is now still on that 11th position. Is showing some pace through sectors 1 and 2, but definitely has to step up his game and find at least 2/10 in the last sector. So I'm curious how he will put up.
Yeah, Peter Berliak has been off on his final lap, so he's not going to improve. So that's one driver that perhaps Calames could get ahead of. He's coming down the back straight now, Ivar Calames. Looking at the lap time, it's again, this is going to be tight. He's got a bit of a slipstream though, so that will help. Let's see if he can get in through the final corner. This doesn't look bad. I'm not so sure this is going to be enough though. Or maybe. No. 1:34.4. So he's 12th and Keithley out as well because Lepela got in.
Awesome job for Lepela, and that pushes Keithley out of the top 10. But Ivar must feel sorry for those last 2 corners.
Well, we've seen that Ivar Calames was fast in the race in Bahrain. I know eventually he retired with brake failure, but the problem is that if you put yourself back in the pack, you just have that danger of perhaps getting taken out by another in the middle of the field. It's always a bit more hectic in the middle of the field as we just watch the final drivers come over and complete their laps. I don't think anyone's going to improve. Usa Jaakko moved up to 4th on that final lap, so he moved ahead of Kostadinov and Huis. Still just under 4/10 shy of Morgan Moran. But so the guys going through to the top 10, Morgan Moran, Atsej Kirchhoff, Jim Paresis, Alexei Usa Jaakko, Bono Huis, Jan Kostadinov, Ron van Starkenburg, Patrick de Wit, Ville Lepela and Peter Berliak. And Jack Keithley and Ivar Calames both out.
Indeed, and what a close battle it was, considering from P6, where Dion Kostadinov is, till until Carlos Martin in P13. That entire gap with those 8-9 spots is within 3/10 of each other. It's insanely close.
I should also mention as well this weekend, it's not the happiest one so far, but it is Precision Motorsport's 100th FSR Grand Prix, which is quite a milestone, and well done to them for reaching that. One of the long-standing teams in FSR. Now there's a few that are a little bit even more long-standing that have been around since the very early days in 2005, but nevertheless a great achievement for Precision Motorsports this weekend, but not the happiest of days so far for them with Calames out in Q1. So we'll see now if we can who's going to be on pole position. I don't know what you think, Chris. It certainly seems to be at the moment a battle between Morand and Kirchhoff.
Indeed, and I'm curious if both drivers already showed their maximum pace, considering they might have taken a little bit caution into Q1 to not instantly show the back of their tongues. But nevertheless, it will be interesting, and I think the battle between Morand and Kirchhoff is the one for pole position.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Of course, with this one-lap qualifying format, though, there's always the chance that a driver will make a mistake. You get no reprieve in this session. If you make a mistake, that's it. So there is that as well, and that does mean that occasionally you see surprise results. Like, for instance, of course, we saw in Bahrain, Peter Berliak here, who's now on his warm-up lap, of course, didn't manage to complete his lap, and of course that means automatically you start 10th. So you've got to be a little bit careful. But I think that we're seeing a battle between Morand and Kirchhoff, but there is that possibility as well of Jim Paresis perhaps getting himself in that battle as well. He wasn't too far behind.
No, he wasn't, and with a good lap, indeed, it's a matter of can you put the edges together in that one moment, in that 1.5 minutes you need to perform. And well, Jim Paresis showed already, especially during the Winter Series, that he has been able to win races between these guys. So yeah, let's see how he hangs on in this Q2 session. At the moment it's Peter Berliak coming on to the back straight, and I'm curious, you want to take us on through the lap with Peter?
Yes, certainly will. So here comes Berliak then down the back straight. Now you may see some drivers running wide into this corner, although Berliak doesn't actually do that. I personally myself found that running wide there and then getting a tighter exit meant that you got more speed down the straight, and that was the way to start a lap. Obviously you don't want to be doing that on the flying lap, but Berliak choosing not to do that as he comes down now into turn 1, and you can see the car there just going over the bump into turn 1. It's quite difficult and quite easy to lose your braking as you go in there, but he managed to keep it under control as he comes now away through turn 3 and up towards turn 4. Just the 3 turns in the opening sector of this lap. And what's the sector time? It's a 25.0. I think we'll see better than that over the course of this Q2, almost certainly. Now here's an interesting one. This is really where you see the downforce levels of these cars. And what's Berliak using? He's using very high downforce because he was flat out through turns 5 and 6, which is very impressive. Into turn 7 and 8, just runs a little bit wide there into turn 7, and that affects you all the way around turn 8. It comes now down towards this hard braking point for turn 9, into their very nice apex there and away from that corner, a 30.5 through the middle sector. That's pretty decent. You'd expect that though, because of course he's got the high downforce setting on over the curve there at the inside of turn 10, as he comes now down towards 11 and 12. And that's looking pretty solid so far. Into turn 13, small lock up there, but nothing too much to worry about.
He certainly gets the apexes working.
Yeah, he certainly does, doesn't he? He's in the DRS section now, so let's see what the top speed is. As he goes down the straight, 307 kilometers an hour. We'll definitely see faster than that, I think, over the course with some of the lower downforce settings. So now comes away towards the line, and it's going to be a 134.9, 134.7, so that's a decent lap from Peter Berliak, but I think we will see faster.
Yeah, certainly for the Q2 setting, he obviously chose for a higher downforce setting. I believe the top speed of Kirchhoff and Morant lies between 313, 318, around those numbers. So it's interesting to see how that develops into the race. But at the moment it's Ville Lepela making his way up for his flying lap. Coming up through the first corner. Let's see if he can get a clean lap in. Showing some nice mechanical grip there through the first few corners. There's a bit trouble on the exit there, but maybe loses a tenth or so. Now let's see the speed he can reach here. 290 at this straight. Gets a 24.8 in it, so already nearly 2/10 under the time of Berliak. And Lepela also flat to the left and right hander. Great momentum to this corner, and definitely has the edge here over Berliak. Let's see how it transforms his second part of this lap. Finds a great exit here. And this is important, gets a wide line through there, so he still has the momentum. Great driver seeing here from Lepela. Now here, one of the most important corners on the circuit. You want to have this top speed. Let's see what he can get with DRS. Will he be close? He tops 311 kilometers. Tidy exit through here. Well, I'm surprised if this isn't a faster lap than Berliak. What would he do? 34.4? 34.2. Definitely a nice lap from Lepela.
Yeah, it certainly was, and you could see that the car just looked more stuck to the tarmac through certain corners. Ville Lepela there, he really did seem to have more grip than Peter Berliak, which is so important, and of course that will be magnified during the race because they're on their race setups, Chris.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt there for a second, but indeed, as you said, he had more grip. It seemed like he had more grip, but also he had a slight top speed advantage. And those 0.3 of a second, 3 kilometers an hour don't seem much, but on the straight.
Yeah, they add up to a lot, certainly. Ville Lepela, of course, he had more mechanical grip, and that's the key. It's very important around this circuit particularly. Important everywhere, of course, as Patrick de Wit now starts his lap. You've got a little bit of things to talk about with Patrick, because he has got a lot of penalty points at the moment, so he's in danger of losing his license. In fact, he's in an appeal at the moment. So that's something, a very good first sector, 24.7 though. That's the fastest first sector that we've seen so far, as he now goes through turns 5 and 6. Let's just watch the car through here. Very nice indeed. He was looking pretty gripped there as I go through now turns 7 and 8. Very important corners this for the lap. You'll gain a lot of time through here, and particularly here in Sector 3 where you have the long winding corners that are important. Runs a little bit wide there, Patrick.
Yeah, loses out on the exit there.
Yeah, he did. I think he was also about a tenth down on Villers-Lepela through the middle sector. So that's I think he's still ahead, but it's a bit tighter now than he'd have wanted. He's on the medium compound as the other drivers this week. You remember in a couple of weeks ago, De Wit ran a different strategy and run the hard tyre in Q2, but he's not doing that this weekend. So away down the straight, what sort of top speed are we going to see here? I think this is going to be faster. Yes, it is. We're into 314 kilometres an hour down into the hairpin, so his Sector 3 should be good. It was interesting that he got a decent middle sector, despite the fact that he's obviously on a lower downforce setting, and the time is a 1:34.5. That's a little bit disappointing, really. He was actually a lot slower than Villers-Lepela through that final sector.
Yeah, it was. It was that moment you were talking about in the second sector where he lost out a bit, and it was instantly 4.5 tenths to Lepela. But then again, Lepela was really steady through there, and well, if Patrick didn't do it, let's see if Rob van Starkenburg can do it. Has a steady line through turn 1. Obviously has a name for himself as a steady driver, Rob van Starkenburg. Curious, I think we're all curious to see what he can do this year. Coming through the first sector, 24.746. That means he's currently the fastest in sector 1. Does lift a little bit in these corners, so let's see how that transforms his sector 2 time. Keeps the car steady though. Now let's see the apex. Oh, that's not good. Rob van Starkenburg loses the rear end of the car and has to make avoiding action. Still continues on though. But that certainly cost him well over half a second, if not more. Now coming up to the straight, goes a little bit deep there, but keeps a nice tidy exit. And what will his top speed be? Remember, DRS is open here. Already reached 300 kph and is stuck on 313, so definitely up there. But he had to lift in sector 2. Now coming up to the straight, what will his time be? It's a 34.8, so definitely that mistake in that hairpin you were talking about earlier, Thomas, definitely is taking some drivers off the edge.
Yeah, I wrote in the preview about that actually on the website. The fact that you've got that crest there on that left-hand turn, it just turns uphill slightly, and that just makes it difficult to get that traction away from the line. And I think the best word for that Van Starkenburg lap was messy. I think is probably how we'd describe that. Jaakko Stadenov then onto his lap for Eventa SimRacing, the first of the Eventa SimRacing drivers, both of them through to Q2, which is very pleasing for them. A new team in FSR, of course, from Bulgaria, based in Bulgaria. Jaakko Stadenov himself Bulgarian, of course. And let's have a look at the first sector. It's a 24.7, that matches the fastest, in fact slightly faster, 400ths faster than the fastest first sector we've seen so far, which was of course from Patrick De Wit. As he goes through now, turns 5 and 6, and again, oh no, a lift there. So that's the first one we've seen, so that would suggest that Kastadanov is running a lower downforce setting. I've seen differences. Some cars on the higher downforce settings are going flat out through there, and others are going low downforce and are not flat out through there. But nevertheless, it doesn't actually seem to make that much difference over the lap, and indeed you see a 30.7 sector 2, which actually is pretty competitive. It's not the fastest, but it's not awful either. Oh, massive moment. Massive moment, and that shows you the struggles of this track. Because once again, that's the third driver in a row now that we've seen have a big moment around this track. And it is so difficult, is this Malaysia track, with those winding corners. It's sector 3, just entering sector 3 at the end of sector 2, and then the whole of sector 3 that is the real problem. Yeah. Because you have those long winding corners, and it's so difficult to get the throttle right and to get your line right as well. Let's have a look at this time. I'm not expecting anything earth-shattering here, especially after that moment.
It's compromised.
1:34.9.
Yeah, lining up on the pack. Yeah, it's again that moment, but yeah, that's really unfortunate. Well, here's something to look out for. It's the home, like Thomas said earlier, the 100th Grand Prix of Precision Motorsport, and here goes Bono into Q2. Let's see, 314 on the straight, but a massive lockup coming into turn 1 keeps the car on the road, but definitely some tire overheating there makes the exit work, and could go early on the throttle. Let's see what his sector time will be. 24.765. So the majority of the drivers into Q2, all of the 24.7s, but Bono is making use of the oversteer of the car here. Definitely a brilliant setup for him. Definitely a great turn in that car. Now coming up, will he be caught out? Definitely not. Steady through the hairpin there, and shows you how to do it as a world champion. Fights the car here for the oversteer, but nevertheless gets a great run through that corner. Has a steady sector 2, and I'm curious to see what he can make of sector 3. This is looking promising, Thomas.
It is. I think he's a little bit slower than Ville Lepela though after the second sector, so he needs to make it up in sector 3, Chris.
Yeah, let's see what his time will be. Does have some good top speed here. I think he will take P1, but there's a slight loss of time on the exit. What would it be? Yeah, that exit on the last corner, that's what cost him provisional pole position there. I'm sure, but that car has some race pace. That's definitely something to watch out for.
Yeah, it certainly is. I think Bono, he was down on Ville Lepela after sector 2, but he'd had a really good sector 3 up until that last corner, and I think he would have taken. Well, he definitely would. It was only 200ths of a second, so
yeah.
But
I'm sure that car is set up for sectors 1 and 3.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. The sector 2 there, and that's the balance that we talked about. Sector 3 and sector 1, of course, very long straights, and you need the speed. But in sector 2, it's very technical, so you have to have a compromise whichever way you go. As Jaakko gets into his lap and gets it all out of shape on the exit of turn 1 straight away. That wasn't a very good opening. We'll see if it costs him through this first sector. I think it might. Let's have a look. Yeah, 24.8, well, not much actually, just a tenth of a second lost, in fact slightly under that, but again, very, very out of shape on the exit of turn 4. He seems to be fighting the car all the way around this lap as he gets a bit too close to the curb in turn 5, and again the car slides. Seems to like sliding it about a little bit, does Alexei, as he goes through turn 7 and 8, nowhere near flat out through there, but you won't be. You do have to take a little bit of a lift, but you can see the flat spots as well on the front left tyre that he's already created. But it's a very, very good sector 2, and that's the fastest sector 2 so far. So that's an excellent sector 2 from Jaakko as he comes now through sector 3, this technical section. And will he be able to take provisional pole position? It could all be about this exit here. That's pretty nice.
Great exit.
Pretty nice exit. And into the DRS zone. That exit is so important to the lap because you get the run. You're losing momentum all the way down the straight if you get it wrong. And now he's got to spot his braking point for the final turn, and he's done that into the final turn and exiting away down the pit lane. I think this is going to be the fastest lap that we've seen today. Let's see. Yes, it is. 33.9.
Wow, blasts it in the final sector as well. Really great lap, and in Q2 33.9 is certainly surprising if you see all the drivers struggling for tenths of a second, and Bono doing 34.2. Let's see, we have some big names coming up, starting with Jim Parisis. Can he get a good grid spot, as you talked about, Thomas? It will all depend on this lap, of course. Going pretty steady to the first two corners. Jim is also known as a stable driver that doesn't stretch the wheel too violently. 24.886 in sector 1, so that's a little bit off the pace. Let's see if he can make it up through the next sector. Brilliant steady driving through these left and right-handers. It's definitely looking promising. Now here the chicane, will he lock up? No, he will not. Great exit there. What will his sector 2 time be? 30.4. This is going to be interesting. Ooh, widely on the grass there. It has a wide line through here, but remains speedy. What do you think, Thomas? What will this be?
I think we're going to be looking at maybe around Patrick de Wit's lap time here, because it's not been a fantastic lap by Jim Paresis. Both sectors a little bit off.
I think he will be in between Bono and Patrick. Let's see, when he crosses the line in 34.541 between Huis and de Wit.
Boy, well, we're good.
Definitely. Well, here's someone to take notice of, Etsy Kirchhoff. I'm sure you want to take us through the lap from the legendary driver in iRacing, and recently tested Formula 3 at the Barcelona circuit. Please take us through the lap, Thomas.
Certainly will. Of course, that's Kirchhoff has been around in FSR as well for a fair few years. He's not raced so much recently, but he's certainly somebody who FSR is very, very familiar with, and it's a very good turn 1. You notice it just takes that slightly wide exit into turn 2. It's actually faster than taking it tighter, because if you take it too tight, it just makes the exit more difficult. You get more traction away from the exit if you enter slightly wider there, although it's not a great first sector from Kirchhoff. 24.9, that's a couple of tenths away, and it's not really that long a first sector, so that's a little bit disappointing from Kirchhoff. I think he would have been expecting more than that. He's flat though through turn 5 and 6, and that will gain him a lot of time as he now goes through turn 7 and 8, and that's looking okay. It's not stunning this lap, but it's tidy at the moment as he goes through the hairpin there. That was decent. 30.1, fastest middle sector that we've seen today. That's a bit more like it as he now heads through sector 3, and this is where all the time is gained and lost, so much of it, because of these winding corners that we've talked about and getting the lines right. You enter so wide here into turn 13, and it's pretty good exit.
Look at that
slide on
there.
The exit, but yeah, that was okay, I think. And now we're going to see, can he beat Alexei Uussi-Jääkelä? I've got a feeling this might only be second. Let's see as he goes through the final corner. I think this might be second, but he may beat Alexei Uussi-Jääkelä. Let's see. 33.9, it is second.
Oh, so
I got
close.
a bit lucky with that though, 5 thousandths.
5 thousandths of a second. Although what we've seen in sector times is not surprising if you take in consideration that in iRacing they all drive with a high downforce package. It's a very different system, and they also lack top speed, and I mean 305 kph on Spa for top speed, for example. So Atse lacking some top speed, but let's see how he can get it into the race. We're now on board with Morgan Morant, and after showing some brilliant Q1 and 2 weeks ago obviously smashed the competition, we're all very keen to see what he will make of this Q2. 24.590 into the first sector. This is unbelievable. We haven't seen a 0.6, and he's doing 0.590 on the edge here of the curves. This is amazing stuff. And although the differences are tenths of a second, you can see Morgan pushing so extremely to the limit. Has some trouble on the exit here, but nevertheless a 30.3 in the second sector. Now here is where it gets really important. Will he get the speed through these next corners, and will he get a good exit out of this corner? Steady. Definitely focusing on the exit. Let's see what top speeds he can reach with the DRS open. Also 313, 314. Well, here he comes onto the final straight. Can he make it for pole position? Morgan Morant. 33.874. Pole position, Morgan Morant. Amazing stuff we're seeing here.
Yeah, it's so good to see Morgan driving, because he is running that lower downforce setting, which of course means that in Sector 2 you wouldn't have expected him to be too fast, and he was a little bit slower than Jääkelä, but nevertheless, it's just poetry of motion watching him drive at times, and that was an excellent lap there. And So great to see Morgan Moran on pole position again, but nice to see as well that we've got two drivers very close to him in Usa Jaakko and Kirchhoff. So I think we might be in for a battle royale today in the race, Chris.
We are, and I still would like to say that I think if Bono didn't have that slight mistake on the last corner, which cost him 2 or 3 tenths, he would have been up there as well. But as you say, at the moment there are three drivers that are in the 33s, creating the 3/10 gap to the rest of the competition. So definitely some gaps in the top 10. If you consider that Dian Kostadinov and Alexei Jaakkola are driving for the same team, there's a big difference between them as well. But Dian obviously had that moment in his lap.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's good to see Lepler up there as well with Ghost Speed because of their. They had a really poor. They didn't score any points at all in Bahrain, and that's not what we've come to expect from Ghost Speed over the years. So nice to see a Ghost Speed car up there, and of course Chronic Racing Team as well. They're up in 3rd place. So the Avid Chronic Racing Team, they'll be pleased with that, especially as they're a fairly new team to FSR. I'm just going to talk a little bit about. The safety ratings that we've got at the moment. FSR has a new system this year where you basically start with 3.5 for a safety rating. If that goes down to 0, then you get your license removed. That is how it works.
Sorry to interrupt, but at the moment Jack Keatley and Bono are already going at it, and obviously they want to prove something to each other. Bono coming out of the better as the two. And if we are on board with Jack Keatley, these corners, if you are behind someone, the dirty air will might catch a lot of drivers out. You already see Jack here struggling behind Bono, because in these high downforce corners you lose so much grip into the dirty air.
Yeah, you do. I've got a question actually about Jack Keatley, and I'm going to involve our broadcast people on the chat a little bit here. Here's a question for you. What is the highest that Jack Keatley has finished at Sepang in World Championship? If you know the answer, Chris, don't tell them. But this is an interesting question. Jack Keatley, we normally expect him, of course, to be fairly near the front. What is the highest that he has finished in Sepang? And try not to look on the records, because that's cheating. You're only cheating yourself. And I'll check at the end of the warm-up and tell you if anyone got it right. Meanwhile, back to the safety ratings. We've got Patrick Devitt, of course, is under appeal at the moment, so we're not sure whether he's going to lose his licence or whether he'll get it back. That is one for talking about later. Not really a lot we can discuss there at the moment because we don't know the outcome of that. But two other drivers who've got to be a little bit careful. Ville Lepler has 1 left on his safety rating from 3.5 starting, and Ivar Calamies as well with 1.5 after starting on a safety rating of 3.5. So those drivers have just got to be a little bit careful this weekend. They don't want to be picking up more penalty points. Yeah,
as Moran makes a practice start and has a great first gear as the likes of it. But it's interesting to see the tire choices for the people who didn't make Q2. Ivar Calamies chose to go onto the harder compound at the start of this race. So did Carlos Martin. Coleridge decided to go on the medium compound. Greco is on hard, so let's see where it can take them.
Just looking at what the thing is in qualifying in the race, we saw yesterday in the ASEAN Championship that at times, if you were fast in qualifying, that didn't necessarily mean that you'd be quick in the race, because the settings here are so different for qualifying in the race. And in actual fact, there were a lot of drivers, Chris, that were using completely different setups in Q1 to what they used in Q2 because they wanted something totally different for the race. So do you think we'll see a bit of a shake-up here when we get to the race?
No, I don't think so. I think the majority of, and certainly the majority of the top 10 will stick to a maybe slightly different Q2 setup. So I think with red sizes and duct sizes it wouldn't be anything extreme. I think numbers at 3, maximum 4 will be taken into consideration. Mind you, the race here is longer than in ASEAN Pro. So yeah, it's curious to see what will happen during the laps. Certainly the opening laps. I mean, the grid is looking really close to each other. So
It's good to see we've got Bono Huis there up in a 39.9, so we'd expect him to be fast. Something we didn't mention today, actually, Chris, was Martin Gosby, who of course was in the top 4 2 weeks ago, didn't even make Q2. So we didn't notice that while we were looking at Calamies, but Gosby didn't make Q2 either. So it just shows you how close the FSR field is. Yeah. Somebody that was battling for a podium 2 weeks ago didn't even make second qualifying this time out.
It's mind you to point out that Gosby did join the server with 1 minute remaining during Q1, so he might have had a problem with his connectivity or anything like that. Otherwise he would sure turn some heads. But well, nevertheless, even though he has to start on the lower positions, he is a driver that uses his head, and he will get a lot of positions early in the race, I'm sure. But the back of the pack is also interesting to look. I mean, there are drivers like Greco and Van der Linden and Briljak as well, who you usually don't see there.
Yeah, we've got somebody on the broadcast that has already got the Jack Keighley question. Well, he's got it half right anyway, I'll say that much.
Tell us.
Jack Keighley's highest position in Sepang, it was a bit of a trick question because, as Borna Spoljaric has said on the broadcast, he's never finished in Sepang despite doing, I think, 3 World Championship races here, and his highest classification, GP Cos classified him as 17th because of that.
Right.
So he's not been a happy hunting ground for Jack Keighley.
Let's see if he can change the odds on that. But yeah, definitely not a good stat on the circuit.
And as we said, Jack Keighley's somebody we expect to be fighting near the front more often than not. I mean, he's not necessarily a race victor battler, but he's often up there in about 5th or 6th place, and that's what we come to expect of him, that you're going to get, you know, high points finishes. That's when he doesn't run into trouble, which occasionally he does. Although, having said that, he didn't receive any penalty points at all in Bahrain, so that was good. We're hoping that Keighley that he can keep that up, because in the past sometimes he's been involved in incidents when maybe, you know, he didn't need to get involved, and that's cost him points in the past. But he had a solid race in Bahrain, and we know he was very unfortunate in losing the points that he would have got there, although I believe he's still got some. So Jack Keighley, if he can keep that up, will definitely be somebody who you would expect to be seeing finishing quite high up the championship.
Certainly.
Interesting, we've seen here in some of the practice times in race trim that Usa Jakala, who was so fast in qualifying 1, I suspect that he must have had a bad lap, because he's quite a long way down the order at the moment in terms of the test times that they're doing here on this higher fuel, which they'll be getting themselves used to before the race.
Yeah, but it's also some make-believe, like Atse. He's showing nothing to the competition already. He's just practicing individual sectors, and on the individual sectors, Atse is showing a remarkable pace. So yeah, I don't think the drivers wanna let anything go from their strategy.
Yeah, I was just looking at the broadcast, and they were right about you were mentioning about the ace race yesterday, that we hope we don't have incidents like that. I have to say it was like a Saturday drive at Alton Towers yesterday. There was so much going off with crashes and all kinds of things. It was a bit bumper car style yesterday.
Yeah,
so hopefully we won't have that, but you wouldn't expect that in World Championship, Chris. These guys are very, very good, clean drivers normally.
Yeah, true, but the fact yesterday was in turn 2, one car hit another, and there's not much room there, and so it becomes one massive collision, because one car is getting is at least making contact to another. So it was a chain of events, and but that's racing as well. It created some spectacle, and let's just say we already had that portion of starting crashes during this weekend. Let's just hope we get a great start and a clean start here in the WC, and see some remarkable racing just on pace, and yeah, some great battles as well. I mean, who wouldn't love a great battle like we saw, for example, with Mercedes in real Formula 1 in Bahrain? I mean, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure we will see that, because we've seen some very close battles today so far. And looking at the race times, there's not a huge amount of difference between the lap times either. So I think we probably will see some good close racing today, as Morgan Moran just makes another practice start inside the pit lane. He's keeping his eye on his mirrors to make sure there's nobody behind him. And but it's a couple of practice starts.
It's like, how much would you give for a one race long battle with Morant, Bono, and Kirchhoff? You know, together, each lap, all the laps of the race. I mean, that would create such an awesome spectacle. But this is Formula 1, and each car differs from the next. But let's see, nevertheless.
Yeah, it would be great. Although, don't forget, Chris, we have got to last an hour and a half commentating on it. So if it gets too exciting, we may have to take us both out.
Yeah, well, it would certainly be worth it.
Well,
anyway, we're about to start the race. I believe the grid is being lined up on the technical part of the server, and well, let's see what will happen.
Yeah, we've got Gosby and Helmbro starting at the back, so I assume neither of them set a time, because, as you say, Martin Gosby joined quite late. So those two will be starting from the back of the grid, from what I can see. I don't know if Helmbro had a back of the grid penalty. I don't think anyone did, but maybe have to check on that. But so we'll just we're going to move to the race then, and let's hope that it's nice and clean into turn one. Turn one, as you say, Chris, is actually quite wide. That's not so much the problem, but as you mentioned, turn two, it gets a lot tighter. It's like an accordion effect. You get squashed back up in turn two, and you do have to be very careful there not to run into each other, because you can go three wide in turn one. You certainly can't go three wide in turn two.
Indeed, and wheel banging can be fatal here. Digitally fatal, at least, and well, it's fair to say that these drivers have the skill to pull it off. It's just a matter of well, time before we find out. It's interesting to see, though, in the warm-up times that there are two drivers in the 38 seconds, which are Morant and Kirchhoff with 38.6 and 38.8. Maybe the other guys weren't showing the back of their tongues, but well, interesting pace to see already that these guys with more than 200 liters are doing the same lap times already as we saw today earlier in Pro.
Yeah, can I just say that's a great expression? I've never heard that one, showing the back of their tongues.
Yeah, I think it's a Dutch comment, but nevertheless.
I understand what it means, of course. In dentists, you show everything by showing the back of your tongue, but just interesting. But anyway, we've got Morgan Moran on pole position away today. Alessiusi Jaakko, is he all right? He's just stalled there on the formation lap. He's got away now, but that was a bit of a worry. You don't want to be doing that on the actual start, otherwise he's going to lose a lot of positions.
Yeah, and here in WC you cannot use any form of assistance. Obviously in the other leagues you can use clutch assistance. In here you can't, and what happens if you spoil the clutch, the anti-clutch kicks in, and what you need to do then is completely floor the clutch again to reactivate it. So obviously he slipped a little bit, but he took the starting place back, and nothing serious going on there.
Yeah, so let's get you a rundown of the grid then. Morgan Moran starts on pole for Crown 7 Netrex. Alessiusi Jaakko is second on his debut for Aventa SimRacing, an excellent qualifying performance. Atse Kirchhoff will start third for Avid Chronic Racing Team, a great qualifying performance for them as a team. Kirchhoff would expect to be up there though. Lepler in fourth with Ghost Speed Racing Team, much better than he was 2 weeks ago in Bahrain. Bono Huis, a disappointing fifth by his standards, with Jim Parisis alongside him in the Twister Racing Black. Patrick de Witt will start 7th for Faster Than Speed, with Peter Berliak in 8th place. Rob van Starkenburg starts 9th for GT Omega Racing, with Janka Stadanov in 10th. Jack Keithley and Ivar Calamies both out of the top 10 on row 6 with the GT Omega and Precision Motorsports cars respectively. Carlos Martin starts 13th, with Blair Disley 14th. Antonio Kolarec will start 15th. Adrian Rodriguez is in 16th place. David Greco in 17th. Marcel van der Linden 18th. Luka Roslikovic 19th. Dino Paolini, the Italian, in 20th for Mad Cape. Eros Masiuli in 21st, Matt Sentel in 22nd, Mark Alberts 23rd, a slight improvement for 2 weeks ago, but nevertheless still struggling a little bit with the car at the moment. Zuhait Kaibo starts in 24th place, with Martin Gosby starting 25th. Expect to see him come through the grid as the race wears on, and Peter Helmbro starting last for the Avid Chronic Racing team in a qualifying that was quite varied for them.
Yeah, indeed, well said. And definitely the two birds who shouldn't be flying at the back of the grid are Greco and Gosby. Obviously, we said it 3 times now, Gosby had a problem, but seeing a twister at P17 and 25 is certainly not something to get used to.
Yeah, of course, there has been a little bit of note about the fact that Morgan Moran actually starts on the dirty side of the track with the pole position here. That's an interesting one, but that's the way that this track has been set up.
And they're standing still such a long time. I mean, Peter Helmbro just coming through the last corner, standing still on the grid now. Okay, take us through the start, Thomas.
Yes, here we go. So they'll be getting ready. You'll watch those lights on the gantry. They come on now. And the 4 lights are on. Wait for them to go out. There they go. It's a good start from Morgan Moran, I think. Usi Jakala's made a pretty good start. And there's a great start from Bono Huis from 5th position. He gets past Atse Kirchhoff, who didn't have the greatest of starts at all. Usi Jakala, he had to think about going up the inside there. Now can Bono Huis get past Ville Lepela? He's going around the outside into turn 2. It's all clean so far down the grid. But Huis can't make that stick. But Moran leads away with Usei Jakala right on his tail in 2nd place, and Bono Huis now having a look at Ville Lepela into turn 4. Can he get the job done? I don't think he can, no. So it's a very clean start there by all the drivers, and Gosby, by the way, has already picked up 5 positions.
That's impressive, and definitely a clean start as Dian Kostadinov goes side to side into the fast left and right hander by Peter Briljak, and actually passing him. Rob van Starkenburg lost out a lot in the 11th spot, so he's definitely the big loser of positions at the start. And really unfortunate for him, but the pack got away cleanly and safe. I don't think there's any driver with damage at the moment.
Yeah, there was a bit of a collision at the back. Marcel van der Linden is already out of this race. I don't know if I think he may have stalled on the grid in actual fact. And Bono Huis, we're told, had a little bit of contact with Ville Lepela in turn 1 and 2, so he's actually now dropped 6/10 back from Ville Lepela, which is not particularly good for Huis, and he'll come under pressure from Kirchhoff quite quickly, I think, the way things are going. As we're seeing somebody else dropping down the timesheets there. I'm trying to work out who that was. I think it was Kolarec. Kolarec, I think, has been off the track somewhere.
Yeah, he's 23rd at this moment and recovering the position. Peter Helmbro also lost out a lot, and he already has a 25-second gap to the leader, so there obviously has been something wrong. Nevertheless, Morgan Moran leading the first lap of the Malaysian Grand Prix, so no change of balance in the front 3 drivers.
Yeah, I think that...
the front 2, I believe.
Yeah, I think Antonio Kolarec had some contact.
Position.
Sorry, Chris. I think Antonio Kolarec had some contact with Adrian Rodriguez in sector 2. I think that's where he lost all that time. The front 2, though, already starting to pull out quite a gap on Lepela, who's in 3rd, who's now coming under pressure from Huis again.
Yeah, Bono is definitely trying to look for a clean air through these corners. Like we said, it's so easy to lose grip there. Atse is also following closely to Bono still, so he can not lack pace at this moment. It seems like we have a nice fight on our hands.
Yeah, it certainly does. It's interesting actually that at the beginning of the weekend I had a little prediction on the website that Bono Huis would not finish on the podium, which everybody thought was a bit bold at the time, but of course at the moment he's 4th. So you never know, I might prove right on that one, but he's certainly looking pretty fast, and he's just got they seem to have caught up with Usei Jakala and Moran again a little bit, so there's a bit of an accordion effect going on here, because Lepela seems to be pulling back in. Just looking down the grid at some of the others, Van Starkenburg's not had the greatest of starts because he's actually gone back to 11th place. As we look at the time between Moran and Alexei Usi Jakala as they go over the line this time, I think it might have gone out slightly It was 6/10, it's now 8/10. So that's interesting. Ville Leppäla is within a second of Juuso Jaakko in front, which of course is going to matter in a lap's time. At the end of 2 laps, of course, they go into DRS zone mode.
Yeah.
So next time round they'll have that, and it will be the first opportunity to try and make those overtakes with the DRS active.
Yeah, but there will be a train effect, of course, for all the drivers who will be within a second of each other. They will all get DRS, except possibly Ville Leppäla. So let's see how that works out. At this moment, Bono is closing in on Leppäla and trying to get as close to him as possible before coming to the back end of the circuit.
He's really struggling in that dirty air though, Bono. He had a massive moment again, well not a massive moment, but a moment nevertheless that lost him quite a bit of time in turns 5 and 6.
Yeah,
and
but
he's
it's
not
also
looked very comfortable through there all weekend so far.
It's also a smart thing to do because if you don't want to overheat the tires with putting extra power on the road. So he's already thinking about the later stage of the race, and obviously he's known as a driver to use his head at all times.
Yeah, he certainly is. Kirchhoff getting very close to the back of Bono, which Jim Parisis certainly hasn't dropped away either. So he'll be in that 1 second window as well, as the DRS is not open this time. So I can never remember if it's the end of 2 or 3 laps at this time. I think it might actually be the end of 3 laps. So that's be why the DRS zone's not open yet, but they will be next time. On Gosby watch, by the way, he's now up to 18th place, so continuing to make progress. We said that we'd watch him through the field. Greco hasn't made a lot of a move though, because he's actually down to, he's still 16th.
Yeah, as we are coming into the 3rd lap of this race, the pack is still unchanged after lap 1, but the drivers are well, not really slotting in, but trying to gain the best out of each other. But the pace is in general really high at this moment.
And just as we say it, David Greco passes Adrian Rodriguez into turn 1. That was a good move by Greco, a very standard move here at Sepang. You'll probably see quite a few of those today. He's made it now up into 15th place, and his next man to catch is Carlos Martin in the Netrex car, Morgan Moran's teammate.
Yeah, and Carlos Martin and Greco being friends of each other. Let's see if they will have a friendly approach towards each other. And at the moment, Ivar Kellemees is getting under pressure by Blair Disley, and it's fair to point out that Blair Disley started on the option compound, so the medium compound, and Kellemees is currently on the harder compound.
Yeah, obviously decided with that bad qualifying Kellemees that it was better to try a different strategy. You often see that in motor racing when in the series where these two drivers, where you have the 2 compounds, that you have to use. You really do have that difference in strategy if somebody qualifies a bit lower down. Alessi Juuso Jaakko, by the way, is 2.2 seconds now behind Morgan Moran. Maybe using his tyres a little bit too much in those opening couple of laps, because Morgan Moran at the moment is streaking away. He's well clear of the rest of the field. There's a bit of debris there on the home straight. I hope that doesn't cause any punctures as the race goes on. I wonder if that maybe was from the start line collision where we had a car stall on the grid. And I think it was Marcel van der Linden may have stalled on the grid, so that was unfortunate. But Bono Huis there having a look at Ville Leppäla and takes a wide exit into turn 2, but actually hopped over the curb there. I'm not sure that'll have helped him very much, because you lose a bit of traction if you go over that curb, and indeed he's not closing enough on Leppäla. So in actual fact, a little bit of mistake there by Bono Huis. He was too tight into the exit of turn 2.
Yeah, well, certainly trying to put pressure on Leppäla by moving into the line of sight. But here, then again, he's losing into the dirty air here, and Atse with his higher downforce setup will increase his potential in the middle sectors.
Yeah, you can see again that he comes under pressure from Kirchhoff in this middle sector. And we've seen that a few times. Bono Huis obviously running a lower downforce setting, which means he's great through sectors 1 and 3. But in sector 2, he comes under a lot of pressure. And the problem he's got is that he's losing a lot of time in sector 2. And then, of course, at the end of sector 2, as you go into sector 3, once you've got past all those twisty corners, he's lost too much time and he can't catch back up to Leppäla in the DRS zones because he's too far behind.
Indeed.
And that's the problem he's going to get, because he's got no momentum off the corners. A little bit better that time, but you can see that there's quite a big gap now between himself and Leppäla, and it's just a case of he's not getting enough of momentum to actually be able to make the move stick. As we watch Patrick
but
de Wit at the inside of Paresis into the final corner. Brilliant move there by de Wit, although he may get Paresis cut down back on the outside of him, but de Wit, of course, will have the inside line down into turn 1.
And look at the top speed. Paresis has his DRS.
Yeah, amazing
the dive! And the dive from Paresis, but Patrick being the smarter of the two by braking earlier and diving underneath him. Brilliant move from de Wit, avoiding action there, but also claiming the place back.
Yeah, that was good, and Bono Huis is getting close to Ville Lepela as well. He's up the inside into turn 4, and he's made the move stick, has he? As they get away on the exit. Yes, he has, so he's up into 3rd place.
Brilliant move.
That was a great move as well by Huis, but Patrick de Wit there, that was much smarter than perhaps he was a couple of weeks ago in Bahrain. He just cut back, let Paresis go through because he knew that he could get the cut back on the exit of turn 1, and that was an excellent move by Patrick de Wit, and that's the kind of driving that's going to be promoted this year in FSR. And sometimes you just got to be a little bit patient because you can really get these moves made just by forcing the other driver into a mistake.
Yeah, Patrick definitely made use of his head there, and is now trying to get to Atse Kerkhoff. Patrick has the better top speed because I just saw that Atse with the DRS open had a top speed of just 304 kilometers an hour, and Patrick now closing in with, well, leaps, not even steps, leaps. Atse with 290 kilometers an hour on the straight, and Patrick with 310.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you again, Chris, because Bono Huis is going to be having a go for 2nd position here, I think, down into turn 1 on Jussi Jaakola. He's suddenly come to life as Bono Huis. First 5 laps weren't that great, but he's coming now. Jussi Jaakola's going to try and hold that round the outside. He'll do well to do that, but Bono Huis gets a much tighter line, and I think he's going to go, oh, this is going to get tight. Oh, just got through there. Good driving to give each other room, but Jussi Jaakola's got, oh no! They've collided, and Lepela's going to get back past Huis.
That was cheeky indeed, and I don't know if it's fair to say, but I believe that was Bono who was instantly steering to the left side a bit. Nevertheless, both drivers are still continuing on, and Lepela taking that place back from Bono after that chaos what just happened.
Yeah, just looked at the replay, and you're right, it was a mistake by Bono. I don't think it was intentional at all. It was just that he had a bit of a slip on the curb on the exit of turn 2.
Yeah,
and that sent him slightly into Jussi Jaakola, and he corrected it quite well, in fact, because it could have been massive contact, could have taken them both out of the race. So Huis did well there to hold on to the car as he slipped on the curb, but it has meant that he has lost a position again, and he's got to get past Ville Lepela all over again.
Yeah, but coming into turn 1, Alexei didn't use the defensive line. He opened the door and said to Bono, if you want to dive in here, be welcome to. So, but let's see, there's a train forming now, and this is absolutely brilliant. We have the complete top 2 till top 7, I believe, in one straight line.
Yeah, Dejan Kastadanov has just run very wide through turn 13. He's lost positions to Berljak and Keithley as they go through there, so he's down to 10th place is Kastadanov, and that's so just that exit. We mentioned that was a tricky turn, and he has lost a couple of positions.
If we can on board to Jim Paresis, he's trying to overtake de Wit. De Wit also makes use of DRS and can maintain the gap comfortable enough to avoid any action on the inside there.
It's such an advantage when you're in that position that having the straight line speed means that you can just keep that gap even when the car behind has got DRS open, as Bono Huis doesn't have a look this time into turn 4 and Lepela. He was a little bit too far back there, and all of this means, of course, that once again we expect Morgan Moran and Bono Huis to be battling for the title, and Bono Huis, of course, is already 6 seconds behind Morgan Moran because he's back in the pack trying to get past other cars.
Yeah, Morgan is in an absolutely great position to be in. All the drivers behind him are fighting, and that's obviously causing much more tire wear and stress. So he has some seconds into the lead, and he can just drive into clear air and keep a manage on his tires temperatures.
The other problem Bono Huis is going to have as well is because he had that moment and the tyres took a bit of a beating through that moment. This year, and because we're using R-Factor 2 now, the tyres are much more sensitive to what you do with them, and be interesting to see if Bono Huis's tyres last very long on this stint, because that moment will have hurt his tyres, Chris.
Yeah, I think so, but let's indeed wait and see. obviously he's still on the charge with Lepela, and Atse closing in on them as well. But Atse does not have the advantage on the straights. Bono now on Lepela. Lepela has to make a decision, left or right. He leaves the door open for Bono and just says, come on in.
It's interesting that we've seen that a couple of times now. Jussi Jaakko did the same thing, and Lepela obviously deciding that discretion is the better part of valor and doesn't decide to fight that. But the problem is now, because he didn't fight it, he's actually under attack from Kirchhoff down into turn 4. This is going to be very close. Atse Kirchhoff, we know, is a great racer. Can he get up the inside into turn 4? He's going to have a go. Don't think he's managed it this time. Oh yes, he has. He's got through. So Atse Kirchhoff then up into 4th place, and Lepela dropping 2 positions in the matter of a few corners, as Matt Sentel is the first car to pit on the 8th lap. That's very early.
It seemed though with Atse that he didn't want it to make the move stick, and he wanted to go back, but he braked later and he actually was forced into the gap. But everything worked out fair and square, fortunately.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether Lepela has looked after his tyres very well, because he seems to be dropping back a little bit, and he's almost in the clutches of Patrick de Wit now. You almost feel the Jaws music coming on.
Yeah, it could have been obvious tactics from Lepela to let Bono pass in order to make Jaakko feel tense about Bono on the back of him. But he lost out to Kirchhoff, so yeah, definitely a question mark at his tyre performance then.
Yeah, there certainly is. David Greco, by the way, I think has been off the track because he's dropping down the order, and I hope this isn't a problem for Greco. He's gone right to the back.
And if we can go on board with Lepela, I think he will make a move at Atse. Yeah, here comes the top speed into play. Atse goes defensive. Lepela on the outside. Atse on the inside. Good defensive driving there from Atse, and well, refuses to make way for Lepela, and it was his right to do so. But Atse definitely in disadvantage on the straights.
Yeah, he certainly is. You can see that Atse Kirchhoff, he's so quick through sector 2. Certainly probably the fastest out there. But in sector 1 and 3, he is losing a little bit of time. Sector 3 is not so bad because, of course, you have got a few technical corners in there. But look now, as we go through turn 5 and 6, Kirchhoff virtually flat out, even on the high fuel. There was just a slight lift there, but not much of one, and you can see now the gap that he's immediately pulled out on Lepela again through that section. But you'll see Lepela close up again towards the end of the lap as Greco's come into the pits, and I fear that this may be a DNF for David Greco. Matt Sentel has retired as well after coming into the pits, so that was obviously a problem. Gosby, by the way, is up to 15th, so he's continuing to make progress, not as much as he was earlier on, and he's got about 3 seconds to catch up on Carlos Martin. But nevertheless, he's making a little bit of progress, in another 5 positions, and he'll be in the points, which would be a good rescue from starting from the back of the grid. Atse Kirchhoff, he's not been pulled in so much this time by Lepela, but I think you'll see a little bit down the straight pulled in.
Yeah, and Bono is making himself ready, ready for a launch up to P2. He's closing in onto Jaakko with steps. Let's see if he can make advantage of the DRS. I think he's a little bit too far off. He's also looking for clean air. He's definitely playing the safe game, but does have a lot of top speed.
As Patrick de Wit is the first of the front runners to come into the pit lane. Now we'll see what tyres he goes on to. Blair Disley coming in for ghost speed as well, I think, a little bit further back. So that's 2 cars then pitting on lap 10. That's not the greatest of fuel mileage, it has to be said. But Patrick de Wit, a decent stop, and he's away again.
On medium.
Yeah, he's gone for medium tyres again, so that's interesting.
And now coming under pressure instantly from Cabo, but he remains in 16th spot. So this will be important for Patrick to see if he can make the stint work.
Oh no, the positive SimRacing cars have just collided. Rodriguez and Cabo, you saw them there in the background behind de Wit, and they've just collided through turn 2, which is a nightmare for the team. That's going to be a bit of paperwork to do later on with the boss there at Positive SimRacing, but they've put themselves back now into the hands of Kolarec as well, who may be looking to take advantage of any mistake that the two of them might make.
Yeah, that was silly at best. And Cabo now completely losing control of the car into the corner, so he might have a problem there. Meanwhile, at the front of the pack, Morant is making a steady lead up to Jaakko in 2nd position. Bono still following Jaakko, and Atse now with a bit of a gap to Bono and Lepela behind him. So with that pit stop the Wit made, the pack has been edged out a bit.
Yeah, we're looking at about 21 seconds that you lose for a pit stop, so it'd be interesting to see how long it takes before we see more cars in. I think I saw another car coming in the background.
More cars in. Lepela is coming in, Briljak is coming in, and Keithley is coming in. So let's see if we see some battle in the pit stop.
Yeah, let's see this now. Ville Lepela, where is Patrick de Wit? Because he came in, he was only a little bit behind Ville Lepela. That's going to be the battle here. Lepela's having a very long pit stop.
Lepela has damage and is repairing his damage.
So Patrick de Wit will definitely get past him. De Wit's past Briljak as well. So that's, well, we'd expect that he was ahead of Briljak. So
yep.
De Wit passed all of these guys as they pitted, and Lepela is going to drop well down the order. In actual fact, he might even be behind Blair Disley. He is. As there's a collision in turn one, was there between Disley and Paolini nearly.
Yeah, but Lepela definitely the sore loser out of this pit stop battle. Coming back on the track in 19th, definitely not deserved that after the performance earlier on.
Interestingly, Patrick de Wit is going about a second a lap faster than the race leader at the moment on those new tyres, which you'd expect, but that just shows you how much he'll be gaining on these cars in front. But the thing is, if they can string it out and make one less pit stop, then that may come back to them later on. So it's really a balance of what you want to do here. Mark Alberts, unfortunately, is out of the race. He's having a miserable start to the season. Really unfortunate to see the likeable Dutchman having such trouble early on in this season. But Usa Jaakko, well, Bono Huis has not managed to make any move on him, as you mentioned, Chris. Since he's caught up with him, it's been fairly stalemate as Huis now comes into the pits, along with Kirchhoff.
So this is going to be interesting. Two top drivers into the pit stops. Well, I think Atse overshoot the line. I don't know.
I think it's the second line, Chris, is the actual pit speed limiter.
I don't know.
That's the way I was driving it yesterday, so I'm going to be seeing the stewards a couple of times in the next few days, if not. But Bono Huis, we'll have to see. Maybe you're right. Maybe Kirchhoff did miss the pit lane speed limit. We'll see if he comes back in a couple of laps' time. Patrick de Wit's pretty close to these
I don't know if we can get a confirmation if anyone has a penalty, but let's keep an eye on that. At this moment, Atse is just coming out of track before Patrick de Wit, and they are on the same compound.
Yes, Bono Huis has gone for the harder compound, so he's doing a slightly different stint here to Kirchhoff and de Wit. So it'll be interesting to see if those two catch him on the softer tyre. Although I am told that there wasn't a huge amount of difference between the medium and hard tyres in terms of pace. You're talking maybe, some drivers were saying, as little as half a second a lap.
Well, I have to disagree. I think it might can be a second, but maybe nothing more. But what I wanted to point out a few seconds ago is that Gosby is driving now in front of his old teammate Bono, and he still has to make his first stop, I believe.
Oh no, Usa Jaakko has been off the track. He's been off the track, he's got back on, it's just been a spin. I don't think he hit the wall, so he will be able to carry on, but it's going to lose him an awful lot of time, of course, and that is really unfortunate for the iRacing star that's come into FSR this weekend. Just turn 13 again, that's what we're saying, Chris, this weekend. Turn 13 is the struggle.
And he's coming to the pit.
And he's coming into the pits. Well, I think that's the right decision, because once you've had a spin like that, been through the gravel, the tyres are going to be dirty. And Van Starkenberg very late on the brakes there, coming into the pit lane.
Yeah, but that was definitely something worrying for Jaakkola. He missed his apex line and was too late on the brakes. And there's the precision car of Calamates sliding through the pit.
Sorry about that. Usa Jaakkola has collided with Gosby on the way out. It's been an awful lap for him. And surely there'll be front wing damage on Usa Jaakkola's car. Surely he's going to have to come back in the pit lane again. And he just obviously wasn't looking in his mirrors, perhaps thinking too much about making that mistake, and saying drat to himself a few times because of the mistake that he made in turn 13 and not concentrating enough. And quite often we see that once you've made one mistake, you make another, because you're just focusing too much on what you've just done. And I think he may have lost his front wing there. I don't know if we can see on the car.
Well, definitely some major damage, and well, if we take Formula 1 rules in aspect, it's certainly Jaakkola's fault. But it's not something to bend over for now, because let's focus on the race. But definitely the action is ridiculous.
I think from what we're hearing that he may have lost a front wing end plate, but that's possibly the extent of the damage. He lost a little part of the front wing, but not the whole front wing. So that's going to be interesting as Berliak has passed Patrick de Wit for 6th place. De Wit already looking to be struggling on those medium tyres. He's only about 6 laps. Well, he came in on lap 10, didn't he? So he's only 4 laps into the stint, so that's a little bit disappointing. He's going to get much more speed down the straight, though. So is he going to take a dive? He is, and he almost scared Berliak off the track there. He's coming in through the exit. There's no collision. It's very close between the two of them, but no collision. That's fair racing so far as de Wit goes to the outside. And I think he'll get past before they even get to the corner. Yes, he will. So Patrick de Wit there, he almost scared Peter Berliak off the track in the final corner.
Indeed, but making good use of that top speed there. What I'm curious to see is the battle between Carlos Martin and Bono. Obviously Carlos has very old tires and Bono has new tires, but being able to have a good top speed and make the use of your defensive lines, he can maybe ruin the stint of Bono by keeping him behind before he makes the decision to pit.
It certainly can. Am I right in saying as well Carlos has got former Precision connections? Is it not right in saying he might have even been there a couple of seasons ago? I'm not sure, but I have some memory that in one of the lower series he was driving for them. Although, of course, they're driving for Netrex now, so he'll fight for the tooth and nail for this position, that's for certain.
Well, about the Precision connection, I wouldn't touch that with a 9 feet long pole for that one. Although he is in connection to Precision at this moment because there's Bono House behind him. Bono now with the advantage of DRS, will he be able to overtake Martin? Martin is opening the door for Bono and obviously does not want to spend time battling and is going to the pit considering he takes his wide exit. Yes, he's going to the pit, so let's see where he falls back to.
Yeah, but look at Kirchhoff. Kirchhoff is right up behind Bono Huis, and that's all due to the fact that Bono Huis was taking time to get past Carlos Martin, and even if the other driver doesn't put up much of a fight, you're in the dirty air for a little bit, and it sometimes allows the driver behind to just close up a little bit.
Keithley is closing up to Berliak certainly, and well, so Berliak outbraking Keithley there and keeping Keithley behind. But Patrick is certainly looking unstable on his tires at the moment.
It's working though, he's up into 4th place, which is not bad. Of course we have had Jaakko off the track, so we've got to bear that in mind. And also we had the incident where Ville Lepela dropped way down the order, although he's back up to 10th now, but he's got past his teammate Blair Disley. Ivar Calamise is right behind Blair Disley, very close behind. And Calamise having another very average race, it has to be said.
Yeah.
He's not had the greatest start to the season, seems to be really struggling to readapt to R Factor 2 and also the new cars this year.
I just wanted to point it out that between all this chaos what has happened during the race, he's still driving in 12th position. Obviously using the different type of strategy. He started on the harder compound and is now stuck behind basically Lepela, who is on the harder compound, and Blair Disley behind him. So they cannot make use of their stint. If you look at Rob van Starkenburg, who had a poor start at best in 11th position, he's now driving at 7th.
Yeah, Morgan Moran is now in the pit lane, so let's see what tyres he goes for on his second stint. It's the hard tyre, so he goes for the hard tyre for the second stint. And where is he going to come out? Is he going to come out in front of Bono?
This will be interesting.
I think he should do.
Yeah, he should do. Has the cold tires, but slides up. This is brilliant for Morgan. He had the gap to his advantage that he could make the pit stop and keep the lead.
I'll tell you what though, that was very tight. Don't forget he was 6 seconds ahead. He obviously decided to stay out a few more laps so that he can don't have to worry about his tyres so much later on in the race. But he cut that a bit fine. If he'd have left it another lap, I think he'd have been a bit behind the two of them. As Calamise, we hear, has passed Blair Disley. So that's a good move there for Ivar Calamise, and he's now just 1 place away from the points. Ville Lepela is the man that he has got to pass next. There's a big gap between Jaakko and Ville. Oh, there's not. It's all right. It's only 5 seconds. It's because Morgan Moran just pitted. Of course, there's a positive SimRacing car there off to the side of the road.
Yeah, that's not nice to see. But will it make any confusion for Patrick? No, the positive SimRacing car is doing the right thing and giving the guys enough room to go around. He has to wait a long time though, because there were a train of cars waiting there.
Of course, Jaakko knows that he's not having the best race anyway, and I'll just have to say that if you're somebody who's coming to race in FSR, that is how you let the leaders pass. That was great driving by Jaakko,
well
straight
said.
out of the way and didn't bother the leaders at all and didn't affect the race at all, which is very nice to see, and that's what we like to see.
Yeah, that's the professional standard you can expect from Formula Sim Racing. And I'm curious to see if we can see a professional fight for the podium here. Obviously behind the podium in 4th, 5th and 6th place there's a heavy battle going on, and Rob van Starkenburg is eager to join them in that battle.
Yeah, Patrick de Witt actually, after coming under pressure from Berliak for the first couple of laps, has now pulled away. He's 1.2 seconds in front in actual fact in 4th place. And Jack Keithley now is all over the back of Peter Berliak. So Berliak now having to watch his mirrors a little bit more rather than attacking in front.
Indeed, and but I want to point out that the advantage Morgan has over Bono, he obviously stopped 4 or 5 laps later than Bono and came out in front of him. So he has that tire advantage, and he's in clear air. Bono is in kind of clear air at the moment because Morgan has a 1.5 second gap to him, but he has Atsi behind him, and that's not a nice guy to have behind you, because if you make one mistake, Atsi will just dive on the inside and you lose it.
Yeah, it certainly will, and Kirchhoff is actually closing on Hui slightly as well. But don't forget, of course, he's on the softer tyre compound, so that will, of course, be an advantage over Bono in this stint. Although Bono does seem to be doing pretty well on the hard tyres, to say. So that's obviously good for him, because he'll probably move back onto the medium tyre later on. It very much depends on when they make that second pit stop as to whether he'll be able to make it to the end on medium tyres. I think Morgan Moran certainly will on his hard tyres because he pitted later. With Bono Huis, it might be a bit more marginal.
Indeed, and Calames is now in 10th position and wanting to catch Jaakko in 9th position, who I think has a lot of damage to his car, and well, certainly will not be able to get the optimum out of it, I'm sure.
Yeah, he is catching Jim Paresis at the moment, but that's...
He has softer tires. Jaakko is on medium and Paresis is on hard. Rob is on hard, and Keithley is on soft, Briljak is on hard, and Patrick is on soft. So it's kind of a mixed up strategy, but at the moment Morgan and Bono in first and second are both driving on the harder compound.
Yeah, they certainly are, as Carlos Martin is now about to make a move on Blair Disley into turn 4, is he? The Netrex driver goes to the inside. He had to think about it, but he decided not to go for it, and he'll keep it back and hopefully get a run. Blair Disley looks to really be struggling on those tyres, as Lepler has been off the track again, has he? He has, he's out. Ville Lepler is out of the race.
That's unfortunate. I don't know what happened there. Okay, here we go.
We're just going to have a look at the replay, I think.
He went to the first corner normally.
It's on the exit of turn 3. It was a very bizarre
He
incident.
Just went straight?
Yeah,
his suspension collapsed, perhaps.
That's odd. I mean, we've seen some retirements this year, and you're going to see some retirements where the car spins, or maybe, you know, a tyre failure or something like that. It didn't look like anything like that. It was just very strange.
Indeed.
He just seemed to, and he hasn't left the server, so it can't be a disconnect. I'm not quite sure what that was.
Yeah, fair to say indeed. And I'm looking now at... Never mind.
The only thing that we can think about, in actual fact, our cameraman's just suggested the fact that he may have been booted to the desktop, possibly, which on his computer, which would, of course, then you wouldn't be able to know where you are on the track. That is a possibility, actually. But we'll see if we can find out from Ville later on what that was. I'll keep an eye on the forums, in actual fact, while this race is going on, because we may actually hear from him before the end of the race what that was. As Martin gets past Blair Disley into 11th place, and Go Speed Racing Team, well, they might not be getting any points this weekend either, because their race weekend is going from what looked pretty promising earlier on in qualifying to not that good at all, and almost as bad as Bahrain.
Yeah, and it's very unfortunate for Lepla. I mean, he stunned us all a bit here by challenging Bono, and well, if you said that last year, as there is Jim Paresis is off the track. Jim Paresis is off the track and trying to rejoin, but it's a difficult situation. losing a lot of places there. Jim Paresis is now driving at 12th position.
I'll tell you what, Chris, you go get yourself in the safety car. You might get points today.
Well, it's certainly a tire issue, I believe.
They've seen an awful lot of drivers going off, and it's just the mistakes. And we talked about the technicality of this track, and of course, because it's technical, that does have an effect on the tyres as well. But driving this track for a long time, I mean, we did the Ace race yesterday, Chris, and that was only 60% of this race. It is very difficult to concentrate for the whole race, isn't it? Because of the technicality of the track. If you just lose concentration for just a moment, then you're off the track here because of how technical those corners are.
It's a full distance, and these cars are far from easy to drive. And what especially the top three are showing here, Morgan Morand, Bono Huis and Atse Kerkhoff, they live up to their names of being the best drivers. And in these mods, it's incredibly easy to make a mistake. As you see other drivers like Lepela just going off. Although I think that was a Windows issue that Lepela had. It was really uncommon, that crash.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect. I mean, it is possible for the suspension to collapse in this game, I believe, but it's very unlikely, and I just can't see that. Yeah, I mean, Lepela had some contact with Bono Huis, but that was on lap 1, so you wouldn't think it would last 17 laps before doing that.
True. As Cabo just left the server as well. He's the next official retirement after Ville Lepela. So already showing well, a decent amount of retirements, 6. With names as Greco, Lepela.
Interesting, we're just having it pointed out to us that Bono Huis is not dropping back from Morgan Moran. They are both on the same tyres, of course, so that is worth remembering. He's dropping back a little bit, but it's only a few tenths a lap. So Morgan Moran might have a little bit more to think about in this race than he did in Bahrain, which was pretty comfortable for him. And the thing is, he's not just got Huis back there as well, because Kerkhoff's there as well as Patrick De Wit's in for his second stop. So I think we're seeing a 3-stop from De Wit today, because he's in again. This is his second pit stop. In actual fact, at the moment, he's on course for a 4-stop, but I suspect that he'll go over to the hard tyre here and do a longer stint. So I think we'll only see 3 stops from him. But nevertheless, he's going to drop down the order again.
But a lot of wheel spin. Patrick spinned the wheels for around 2 seconds coming out of the pit. It was really not worth it. And Paris is now putting pressure on Blair Disley. Blair Disley on the medium compound, and Paris is on the hard compound. Mind you, he did have that moment off track, so he obviously has problems with the tires as well. And Calame is now steady in 8th place, so he might be able to have a better second part of the race, because we aren't even halfway yet.
Yeah, we sometimes have people say that FSR is the same drivers up the top all the time, and that might be right to a certain extent, but I tell you what, you really do have to practice in this race. And I'm going to give you an illustration of that now, because Martin Gosby, who, by the way, was 4th in Bahrain and for a long time was battling with Bono Huis for 2nd place, is 17th today. So that just gives you an idea of just how close it actually is in FSR, and you really do have to be on the money every weekend if you want to keep getting those good results.
And if you want to know what we're talking about, how hard it is, you can just go to our website Formula SimRacing and download our mod and give it a try yourself, and you'll find how hard it is to do a 1:33 in the qualify of Malaysia.
Yeah, virtually impossible is the answer to that. Unless Alexiusi Jaakko is catching back up again. He's back up to 7th. He's having a good recovery drive. As I say, he'll be really disappointed that he made that mistake early on, and I suspect he'll probably be carrying some damage as well from that incident in the pits with Martin Gosby, I think, in actual fact. So I wonder if Gosby might have damage. That might be why he's down where he is, but he was only running up in 14th, I think, at the height of his race weekend so far.
Atse is off, losing control of the car, but that was a big moment there. If we can just see a short replay of Atse Kerkhoff pushing the limits into the corner. He was following Bono and into the left-hander, maybe into the dirty air. He lost control of the car and making a big slide and the flat spot on his tire.
Yeah, I didn't know that Atse had an experience in Japanese drifting. because that was an amazing save.
That was an amazing save indeed, but very compromising for a stint, of course. And now Bono is into clear air, and he might put some pressure on Morant. But those two drivers, Morant and Huis, are going into a timing battle against each other, lap by lap, 10th by 10th. It will be a challenge. And this is, of course, what we have all been waiting for, a heads-up battle between Morgan and Huis.
Yeah, he's still dropping back a little bit at the moment, is Bono, but of course if Morgan Moran makes that later pit stop again, which he probably will, then it's possible that Bono Huis will get that undercut on him, and as you say, that will see then the battle between the two of them later on. It's now out to 3 seconds. Morgan maybe just trying to turn the screw a little bit and trying to get that out a little bit more, as Van Starkenburg has got past Jack Keighley, and Keighley is in the pit lane in actual fact, that's why. So Jack Keighley in for his second pit stop of the afternoon, and we're seeing the tyres going away quite quickly here because there's a lot of drivers making their second pit stops before we've even got to the halfway mark at the moment.
Yeah, it's a circuit that's very demanding at some points for the tyres, and it's interesting to see how the drivers cope with that. At the moment, Rob van Starkenburg is a steady driver and doesn't have too many lockups, and he's certainly making his way back up to the grid where he belonged after Q2. I'm curious to see what he can make of the stint.
It'll be interesting to see, as Patrick de Wit has now set the, Atse Kirchhoff currently has the fastest lap of the race, but de Wit is the fastest man on track at the moment on those new tyres, with a 1:39.0, which was a second quicker than Bono Huis and half a second quicker than Morand as well.
Yeah, if he's finally into some clean air right now. He has a gap to Paresis, which he will be able to close pretty soon. But he has to make this stint work for him in order to gain something in the last stint of his race.
Yeah, the gap now from Miranda Luis has extended a bit more on this lap. I think it's going to be Kirchhoff's in the pit lane. Now that's interesting. He's come in earlier this time, quite a lot earlier, and probably that's what you said. Because of that big slide, his tyres have been ruined, and it's meant he's had to come into the pit lane an awful lot earlier because he's in earlier than Bono Huis this time. So again, the tyres probably ruined there by the moment that he had.
Yeah, and of course the tire degradation will get smaller when the fuel tanks are getting lighter. But we just crossed the halfway mark of the race. We are in the 24th lap of 56. So we already see some drivers do 2 or 3 pit stops. And we are halfway. So we might see a heck of a lot more.
Yeah, just worried for Bono Huis. Remember what happened in Bahrain? His race was quite considerably compromised by the fact that he always came out behind other drivers. And the thing that concerns me is because he's on these hard tyres, and de Wit and Kirchhoff were both on the mediums, I suspect that because he's obviously going to have to go longer on this stint, and I suspect when he makes his pit stop, he may well come out behind both of them. And then again, he's going to be having to fight past them. I mean, you would expect him to get past them, but again, it's just time lost that you don't want to be losing.
Indeed, and Atse is now doing exactly that behind Carlos Martin, considering his general pace of the race. Atse is on the softer compound, so is Martin, and but Atse just pitted and has the fresher tires. And I'm curious to see if he can make a move with DRS on the back straight.
Yeah, we're just seeing Jack Keighley actually set the fastest first sector of the entire race on new tyres, 25.5, which is actually an astounding first sector.
Yeah.
That's not far off qualifying.
If we can just go on board with Atse for a moment and let's see if he can close the gap a little bit to Martin. You can see the top speed of Atse is definitely not in his advantage. He closed up a little bit, but not as far as he would be. As Calames and Briljak are pitting, Carlos is defending from Atse Kirchhoff, but opening the door for him. Atse is getting all the room he needs to overtake Martin here, and Martin just lets him go, which is maybe the wise decision. You can battle 2 or 3 laps, but if you know someone is going to pass you because he's basically faster and on a different strategy, there's no need to compromise your race with 5 or 10 seconds fighting.
Yeah, we said before, didn't we, that we felt it was about 23 seconds for a pit stop. Well, let me tell you that Bono Huis at the moment is, well, he's less than 22 seconds ahead of Atse.
Yeah.
He's now 21.4.
Calames is overtaking Dian Kostadinov. Dian choosing a defensive line. but letting Calame's past. Calame's just pitted, of course, and is on the medium compound. And also Dion doesn't want to get involved in an intense battle.
Yeah, it's a nice competitive field today. We're 25 laps into this race, and every single driver that is still in the race is on the lead lap. That's impressive.
Indeed.
I think that just shows you how competitive it is this season in FSR. Has Helmbro gone off, I think, at the back because Paulini's just passed him. And I've got nothing to say he's been in the pit lane. He might have been, I don't know. But anyway,
yeah.
Bono Huis now 4.2 seconds behind Moran. So Moran now starting to eke out the gap as the stint goes on. It almost looks like Moran is actually looking after his tyres better than Bono Huis. So of course Moran did pit a little bit later though.
He does have the 4 or 5 laps advantage, but at this moment I think the guy who is making the best use of his tires is Rob van Starkenburg. He's driving around in 3rd position, and he does have Jaakko with newer medium tires on his back, but still he was driving 20 laps ago. He drove in 12th spot van Starkenburg, and now he's 3rd. Let's see what he can make out of this stint, and when he makes his pit stop going on to the mediums.
I really think Bono Huis here, I know that he's going to be on the medium tyre later on, but let's hope he can make it with 2 medium stints at the end, because he's definitely going to be behind Kirchhoff when he comes into the pits now. That gap's only 19 seconds, and the gap to Patrick de Vet, I think Carlos Martin has got to pit, so I don't think we need to look at him. The gap to Patrick de Vet at the moment is 24.3 seconds, so that's getting a bit tight as well. We say need about 23 seconds to have a pit stop, and this is the problem that Huis is going to have. He's probably going to be in 4th place when he comes out of the pit lane, and I don't know how that's going to work for him, because it's just going to get him into battles that he really wouldn't want to be in. So it'd be interesting to see if he, and then of course you could ruin your medium tyres while you're pushing them harder to overtake people as he comes into the pit lane now, so we're going to see where he comes out.
Yeah, this is really interesting to see. Ooh, just indeed gets exactly the point where he has to has his speed limiter on and nails it. Looks like a promising pit stop, and he is going to medium tires, so let's see what he makes of this. He pitted in lap 27. Rob is passing him. Jaakko Atse is definitely passing him. And is the width? No, the width is far off of Huis. But Atse definitely jumped Huis there.
Yeah, he just jumped him a little bit. I think the actual fact, the information that I got from a source that I shall now sack is wrong. It's not 23 seconds, obviously it's a bit less than that. Probably only about 22, 21 seconds, because just looking at how far Patrick de Vet is behind Bono Huis, it's 5.3 seconds in fact, so it's quite a lot less than 23 seconds, but nevertheless he's behind, that's Kirchhoff. I'm wondering actually if Patrick de Vet's been off somewhere there, because it almost looks like they, because Kirchhoff was not, it was about 4 seconds ahead of de Vet, and that's now 6.3, so maybe that's had an effect as well.
Yeah, and what did have an effect is that moment we talked about earlier, and we saw earlier, of Atse Kirchhoff. Atse finds himself now within a second of place 3 and 2. So if he didn't have that mistake, let's say, he wouldn't have trouble in the dirty air now, because Bono is able to close up to him quite easily.
We could also say, though, that if he hadn't made that mistake, he might not be ahead of Bono Huis now, because he might have pitted later. So that's it. It's amazing how things work sometimes, isn't it? Sometimes things can come back together, and you might make a mistake in a race. It might actually turn out to your advantage. Sounds bizarre, but if it's not the big mistake, then obviously you don't want to be making them. As Usa Jaakko comes into the pit, so that really didn't help Kirchhoff, because Bono Huis isn't going to have to worry about him. But now they're going to have to try and get past Van Starkenburg, who's doing a very good stint on these tyres, as you said, Chris.
Yeah, he's. I'm curious to see when he's stopping, and I'm also curious to see if Rob will let Bono go like he did 2 weeks ago. It seemed like can't say team orders, but he wasn't putting up any effort to keep him behind. But at this moment, he has to defend for Atse. Oh, and locking up for... Oh, we just talked about the tires, and now he's losing 2 positions in 1 corner. Both Atse and Bono passed Rob van Starkenburg. The 3 Dutch guys fighting for the podium spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Kirchhoff there with a move round the inside. Van Starkenburg ranked deep into turn 4, and that just allowed Kirchhoff and Weiss to go past. But once again, Kirchhoff lost time and Bono Weiss didn't, because Weiss got past straight away.
Yeah, and I think Rob will pit instantly. He's short shifting through the corners now, and he will make his way to the pit now.
Morgan Moran's still lapping in the mid-39s on those old tyres, which is quite impressive. And I just see what this lap is this time round. It's a 39.3, which is actually nearly his fastest lap of the race on tyres that are now 12 laps old. That is impressive.
Yeah, it is impressive indeed. And now we can see a gap forming for him that is, well, getting out of control for the rest. Yeah, Rob is pitting at the moment.
Yeah, Bono Weiss is going to have a move on the inside of Atsay Kirchhoff, though, as he comes down the inside. And Kirchhoff, I tell you what, I know that, you know, sometimes it's good to have higher downforce, but that's ridiculous, because he's just getting absolutely pounded down the straights.
Yeah, the top speed of Bono is way better, and it's yeah, it's more common what we see compared to other drivers. Atsay is just lacking some top speed, but. Yeah, maybe on tire management, if you have more downforce, you should have a little bit more wear as well, because the force is greater in the corners. But yeah, let's see how it goes for him.
I think Bono Weiss might be the leader of this race in a few laps' time, because he's only 20.9 seconds away from the lead, and Morgan Moran has got to come in again, obviously, shortly. Now the interesting thing is Morgan Moran has got a little bit more to play with on tyres, but I think we are going to see a good battle for the race win between 3 drivers here, so definitely stay with us on the broadcast, because this is going to get interesting, because he's now down to 20 seconds and Morgan Moran I think would be better off coming into the pit lane. He's not though, he's not. And I'm almost certain here that Moran, when he pits, is going to come out in 3rd place.
Yeah, but that might not be a problem. You see, we just passed the halfway point, and Bono just pitted and went on the medium tires. There is a possibility he is making 2 more stops. So let's see if it's just a tactic.
Yeah, I think you might be right, actually. Morgan Moran, we're just looking, how many laps has he got to go? 26 laps. Well, at the moment, he certainly couldn't make it on the medium tyre. I mean, the tyre mileage that I could get from the medium tyres was about 21 laps. So actually, you're right about Bono. Well, he's almost certainly won't be able to make it. 20 laps, I think, is probably the maximum on medium tyres, and they are a bit spent when you get towards the end of that. Yeah, you're sliding around everywhere. It's possible. It's possible.
Yeah.
I know not all drivers were managing 20 laps, but I drive around very slowly, so that means I can get a lot further on them.
Well, the tires obviously decrease a lot less when the fuel tank is off, but yeah, Bono is lifting through these corners. It's hard to say what will happen, but we will sure find out. There are still 26 laps to go, and it will be 26 laps full of excitement. As Patrick de Wit is pushing and playing with his throttle during the Sector 2, when he's followed closely by Keithley, who is followed closely on his turn by Briljac and Parisis.
Yes, good race so far for Patrick de Wit, and a lot less eventful than the one in Bahrain 2 weeks ago. But that's fine, because he's up in 4th place, and sometimes as a driver you like the exciting races, you like to be involved in action, but sometimes it is nice just to have a nice quiet afternoon where you can pick up some solid points, and just especially around a track like this where the battling does get particularly hectic around here, because every corner leads into another corner that seemingly goes the other way, and
indeed.
So the battles can go on for 4 or 5 corners around this circuit.
Yeah, and the last lap of Morgan Moran was a 39.2 and Bono responding with a 37.8. So Moran lost 1.5 seconds in only that lap, and you can see Bono's really pushing on the apexes and throwing the cars over the curb, which is a hard thing to do and easy to lose your car at the exit. But he's really making use of this stint and is smelling French blood, as to say. Let's see.
It certainly is, and we thought Bono Weiss has obviously maybe realised that Morgan Moran's maybe going to do one less stop this afternoon. He's just decided, I'm going for this, because the problem is, of course, it's only a 12-round season, I think, this year, and is it 12 or 14? It's one or the,
No,
the
12,
two.
12.
Yeah, it's 12 rounds, so you don't want to be 14 points behind the championship leader after 2 races. I know that's not a lot, but given that we've got less rounds this year, Bono Huis will not want to be beaten by Morand again, so he's obviously decided, I'm going to go for this, I've got no choice. And the thing is, if he is making another stop, and Morgan Morand has only got 1 stop to make as well, then Huis probably feels, well, I haven't got to worry about the tyres, let's just go for this.
Yeah, indeed, and that's what his response should be. This is the soft stint for Bono, and I'm sure Bono will do 1 more stop after this on the harder compound, and he will finish the race with that compound. And Morand is, well, the king of consistency today. His last 10 laps were all within 3/10 of each other, so he's definitely working his plan out, and well, being in the lead, he has all the room and free air to do so.
Yeah, it's not a great afternoon for Alexius Jaakko, who is now back in 11th place after that earlier incident, and obviously has got some damage on the car, because we saw how fast he was in the early stages, running with Huis and Kirchhoff, but a long way back now. He's in actual fact 50 seconds off the lead and outside the points, so Aventus SimRacing at the moment at least not on for any points today, but there is still 24 laps to go, and do say Jaakko is only 4 seconds behind Rob van Starkenburg. So that's certainly still doable, but it depends on whether he's got the car to do it anymore.
Yeah, Van Starkenburg just pitted a few laps ago and just put a 38.6 on the board. 6/10 shy of Morand, who is driving on older, harder compound tires. So the difference there, you know, it's what you say. You have to be concentrated all the time, because Bono has, well, basically almost the equal amount of laps on his stint, and he's 1 second faster than Rob at this stage.
Yep, and it's interesting actually, because nobody has ever won at this circuit other than Bono Huis, that's on the grid now anyway. Obviously people have won in the past, but of the drivers on the grid today, Bono Huis is the only one that has won a World Championship race round here. The previous winners that we've had, none of them are on the grid anymore. One of them is actually Rasmus Tali, who now drives in the Ace Series. He's dropped down to the Ace Series this year. He was a previous winner at this circuit in World Championship back in 2010. Yeah. But Bono Huis the only one, because of course we didn't race here last year, so it returns to the calendar for 2014 after not racing here in 2012. Huis has now got the gap down to 14.9 seconds to Bono, as Jack Heathley now is quite close to Patrick de Witt for 4th place.
Yeah, and I can see when I look with Morand, Morand is trying to push a bit and get, I believe, near to his pit stop. He's very consistent. His last 3 laps were all 39.4s, and before that he had 3 laps of 39.3. So he's really trying to make the best out of these last few laps, and he would come in I believe the next 5 laps to see the look of this.
Yes, I think he probably will. I mean, we're looking at it now. He's got 23 laps to go. I think he could almost certainly make it on hards now. So it's just a case of whether he feels that he wants to go a little bit longer and maybe do a medium stint at the end. As you said, with the fuel being lower, the tyres won't wear as much. Yeah. So that's a possibility. I think that he probably could make it to the end on hards now, though, Chris. I think it's definite that Morgan is doing only the 1 more stop.
Yeah, I think you're right. Although I'm curious to see what Bono's next lap time will be. He's not showing any signs of fatigue for the looks of it. He's still lapping in 37 seconds, and as he crosses the line, will it be on the 38.003? So still up there in pace, and not showing any signs of degradation on the tires.
Yeah, and he's increased that gap to Kirchhoff as well, of course. Kirchhoff has not been able to live with Huis in this stint. He's dropped back to 3 seconds behind. Of course, Bono, if he is doing his tyres in, though, by driving too fast at this point, although I don't think that'll be a problem.
Yeah, and Keithley is coming up to, well, not a very good friend of him since the accident 2 weeks ago, to Patrick de Witt. So let's hope we can see a less tense battle than 2 weeks ago, although the exit of Jack Keithley was poor at best, which allows Peter Briljak to make a move. Peter trying to on the outside, and he gets on the grass a little bit. Jack Keithley holding on to that position. Was that fair, Thomas?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think Pedder just ran a little bit deep into the turn. I don't think there was anything wrong by either driver there. But Berliak obviously overestimated the grip he had left in his tyres there a little bit.
Yeah, well, optimistic to go on the outside there, but both drivers let each other live.
I think it'd have been a bit harsh for one of them not to let the other live.
And Berliak now really closing in on Keithley, and Keithley closing in on De Wit. Let's see, because De Wit is on the harder compound. Keithley and Berliak and also Calames, who's 1 second behind them, are all on the medium tyre.
Yeah, our cameraman's just made the comment that it's De Wit, Keithley and Berliak round 2 after 2 weeks ago. It's like a boxing match. They're going into the second fight here this weekend. I think the way to describe the relationship between the three of them at the moment is maybe frosty.
Yeah, at best. But let's hope for some good punches, but not below the belt.
Yes, absolutely. Good boxing knowledge there. Yeah, it's getting very close between them. And actually, Ivar Calames as well, who seems to have woken up a bit. Raikkonen-esque has decided to come to life halfway through the race, and he's now up to 7th place and battling with a possible 4th.
Patrick locking up though in turn 1, and Jim Paris has entered the pits, making his last pit stop, I believe, on hards. So he's trying 21 laps this last stint.
Yeah, Eros Masciuli has actually just set the fastest middle sector, and the middle sector that he's just set was 1.5 seconds faster than anyone else at any point on that. I mean, he's down in 17th place, so it's not going to do him a lot of good, but a 31.5 in the middle sector, I think he deserves some mention on the broadcast for that, because that's an astonishing middle sector.
Definitely. As the top 10 now becomes really interesting, Rob van Starkenburg has disappeared a bit on the medium tires. Now 10 seconds behind 8th place Carlos Martin, who's driving a fabulous race, closing the gap to the pack we just mentioned. And well, if the pack we just mentioned is fighting with each other, then it's easy for him to rejoin the fight.
And then the problem they've got is they're not getting a good enough exit off turn 13, and then you've got Patrick De Wit down the straight, who we know has got a good top line speed. We know that the GT Omega cars have as well, but it's not enough, and they can't get close enough in that DRS zone to make a pass. I think, in fact, I think Berliak might be the one attacking here on Keithley. So let's see down into turn 1. No, not quite. So that's interesting. Interesting as well, Calames seems to be pulling out of the slipstream a little bit there. I hope not, but that's usually a sign of engine problems. We've seen in the past that if you pull out of the slipstream, it's normally to save the engine. So I hope that isn't going to be a problem for Ivar, especially after having the brake failure a couple of weeks ago. Yeah,
in the last 2 laps, I believe he had those brake failures. So that was certainly unfortunate, and it's certainly not the start of the season he has been looking and aiming for. But he is in an opportunity to redeem himself a little bit. I mean, he's driving around the 7th, but 2 seconds shy of the 4th place.
Yep, it's interesting to see Patrick De Wit still holding them off. The gap between Morgan Moran and Bono Huis, by the way, is only 9 seconds now. So even if Morgan Moran is making an extra pit stop, it's getting a little bit closer. 20 laps to go. And Atse Kirchhoff just 4 seconds back from Huis as well. It's not over yet.
It's not over yet, and both Bono's tires and Moran's tires are starting to show signs of fatigueness. Morgan is now driving 39.8. The last 3 laps, very consistent still, and Huis is driving 38.0 and 0.3 and 0.2. So if Bono can continue this for another 10 laps, we got a major battle on our hands. But
he's gaining at 1.5 seconds a lap as Berliak has made it past Keithley, and I think Keithley's run off the track because he's in the pit lane. That keeps fooling me, that one, because the pit lane here isn't direct off the track. It doesn't go blue on our screens, which means they're in the pit lane until they've actually lost a bit of time, as Carlos Martin, we've been told, has been off the track in the Netrex car, still up in 7th place.
He's still in 7th place. Keithley is indeed in the pit, but Carlos Martin is still on track. He did have a moment there with a 43.6, so losing 4 seconds there.
I think Morgan needs to come in because I'm pretty sure he can make it to the end from here. He obviously wants to go onto the medium tyre for the last stint because he knows that Bono Weiss will be on the medium tyre because he's making one more pit stop. But the problem is that Morgan Moran is now losing nearly 2 seconds a lap, and that is, I mean, Weiss is going to be with him in 3 laps time at this rate, 3 or 4 laps time.
And as you just mentioned that he is pitting at this moment, so let's see what's going to happen. Bono is not following, so he's going for yet another few laps. But it's interesting to see what the tires he's choosing. 18 laps to go. I think he's going for the medium tires.
Well, 18 laps, I think that's doable on the medium tyres. I mentioned earlier that I felt that, you know, if you really push them, you could get 20, 21 laps out of them, and indeed he is. It is the medium tyre, so that's what we'd expect. So now, of course, he's going to be faster, and even better, he's going to come back out in front of that big battle for 4th place, which is good, because it means he's going to have clean air. He's not going to have to worry about anything. He's well in front of that battle, in actual fact, so that's good for Morgan Moran. It means he doesn't have to worry about battling with anyone. He's got clean air now to lay down some laps, as Calamise also comes into the pit lane now for his final stop.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that it's nearly impossible for Bono to finish the race on this stint, on these tires. So he has to come in.
Yeah, absolutely. He pitted on lap 28, so 28 laps on mediums. Forget about it. It's not going to happen. So Bono Weiss will have to pit again, certainly. And of course, now we've got that situation where Morgan Moran is actually now going to be going faster than Weiss because he's going to be on the newer tyres and the fresher rubber. So it'll be interesting to see how long Bono leaves it. Of course, he's got to think about the fact that, yes, Morgan will be catching him at the moment, but he may decide I'll leave it a bit longer and then I'll have fresher tyres that I can just banzai the last 10 laps.
In the end, indeed.
And, so that depends which tactic he goes for here. Does he come in earlier, or does he leave it a bit and then go for a really aggressive last few laps?
I think he will come in with 12 or 13 laps to spare, and he will drive another 4 laps on these tyres.
Well, we're seeing 3 different strategies here because Kirchhoff's in, so he's going to come in a little bit earlier and try and close the gap down to Bono. Now, the key thing here is for Kirchhoff, can he get out in front of that battle between Berliak and De Wit? In actual fact, it's not a battle anymore because Berliak's got past De Wit. So that's interesting. We didn't see that on our screens, but Kirchhoff into the pit lane, and it's important that he gets out in clean air.
Yeah, but he's on hard. Kirchhoff is on hard.
That's odd. Now, I think he's already been on the hards, has he not? Has he not been on the hards yet? Because that seems a strange decision.
I believe he has been, so well, maybe just trying to make it safe.
Well, it's very safe. 17 laps on hards, that would be comfortable, I would have said. I would have thought it would have been comfortable on mediums by now, so that's a slightly odd decision by Atsay Kirchhoff to go for the harder tyres there. That's very strange, but that's what he's decided. So,
yeah, although you can still, if you come under pressure in the end, you can still defend. But yeah, that's a bit stupid to say of me because he has the gap already to Berliak, and but maybe he just wants to push the next lap and thinks this is the right tyre to contain the consistency I need.
Yeah, Patrick De Wit has been into the pit lane again, has dropped out of the points for the time being, but of course he'll be on newer tyres, and some of these guys in front of him may be pitting again before the end of the race. Looking at the gap now between Morgan Moran is taking chunks of time out of Bono Weiss's lead. It's down to 11 seconds, so Morgan Moran is flying on this new set of tyres.
Yeah, and Patrick just is going for a 3-stop strategy, I believe. And Moran now doing a 1:36.9. Indeed, it's a leap towards Bono.
Yeah, so that's the fastest lap of the race by some margin, and that is an excellent lap by Morgan Moran as he tries to cement his second successive victory in FSR and take a big lead in the championship as well, which would be great for him. Only 14 points, of course, 1 DNF, and that's completely wiped out. Azusa Jaakko is now back up into 5th place as Martin and Van Starkenburg come to pit lane, so they're making their last stops. So it'll be interesting to see if any of these drivers, as Calamise has got past Kostadanov, who was also in the pit lane, and there's a few drivers now making pit stops. We'll see Calamies, I think, has already been in the pit lane for his last pit stop, is he not? Because we saw him pit a couple of laps ago. So he's up into 6th now. So that's a great recovery by Ivar Calamies, who didn't look to be having the greatest day earlier on.
Yeah, and that's one driver I think needs a nice result, and I'm certainly happy for him. At the moment, I would be happy for Patrick de Wit if he could get past Jim Parisis, because Jim is on the harder compound, Patrick is on the softs. But let's see how that develops.
Yeah, as we've had our first driver to go a lap down now, Dino Paolini. It's taken 40 laps. That's how competitive it is in this field, and that's very impressive. But Bono into the pits.
And in lap 41, so he has a 15 lap stint. Morant already passing. So let's see what the gap is. Atse will jump Bono. That's for sure, I think. Coming out of this will be exciting if we can go on board with Atse Kerkhoff. This will be exciting for the pit stop of Bono.
I think Bono's going to have it. I think he's going to have it, yeah. But
yeah,
of course, Bono has got to get his tyres up to temperature, so there's that to bear in mind as well.
If Atse were on the soft tyre, he would have gotten him. I'm pretty sure.
And that's what I said. What we were saying, Chris. Why go to the harder tyre with only 17 laps to go? To me, that just doesn't make sense. And we'll have to maybe find out from Kerkhoff why he did that, because we're pretty sure that he had been on the hard tyre already. So that is an interesting decision, and I don't understand that. Use Jaakko, by the way, is back up to 4th now. Calamies has Burliak feeds back in right in the middle of a battle.
Brilliant.
With Jack Keighley and Patrick de Wit and Jim Parisis. De Wit is now past Parisis, so that's it's going to be round 2 of Jack Keighley, Burliak and de Wit to come in these last 15 laps, and make sure you stay with us for that.
Yeah, and as Van Starkenburg just pitted, and Martin actually pitted too, we will have a battle on our hands for the last point position in 10th spot, as Starkenburg closes in on the Crown 7 net tracks of Carlos Martin.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Van Starkenburg down that far. I don't know if he didn't seem to have the best of Parisis has got back past de Wit. What's going on here?
Indeed, I was just about to say. It was a slight mistake from Patrick, I believe. Let's see. Yeah. He went off track a bit, and Paris was able to go on the outside of him. So a brilliant move from him.
Patrick gets a little bit leery, 13 and 12 as well, just almost put a wheel on the dirt. He's going to be a little bit careful. He's going to have much better speed though. We know how fast this faster than speed car is, and look at that. He's really closed in down the straight. It was nearly 7/10, and he just blew the whole thing out of the water as he comes back now on the exit.
Yeah, but Peter Briljak is also fighting in front of there. What an action going on here.
And both make their respective moves stick. Burliak then past Keighley into turn 1, and de Wit the same with Parisis. So that's how it's worked out, as Peter Burliak now up into 6th position, and Jack Keighley is down to 7th place. So it's interesting to see. The Precision Motorsports car of Ivar Calamies, by the way, is coming back into this battle quite quickly, because he's being caught by these 4.
Yes, he is, and it's curious to see what will happen, and also if Ivar decides how hard he should take it. I mean, he pitted 4 laps ago. He should be able to finish the race if he maintains a steady pace. But if he pushes too hard and the tires fall off the cliff, he might lose 5 seconds, 4 seconds a lap in the last few laps of this race.
Yeah, well, of course, he must have pushed very hard in the early part of that stint, because he was actually behind these 4 when he came in, and somehow managed to get out in front of them. So it must have been an absolutely electric outlap by Ivar Calamies. But
indeed, and the last lap of Bono Huis was a 36.3, and from Morgrand it was a 37.3. So Bono is just clearing 1 second the last lap between Morand and him. So with 13 laps to go, this battle is far from over. Let's see what's happening. Morand just did a 25.5 in the first sector, and Bono is replying to that with a, let's see, 25.1. So that's again tenths in just one sector.
Yeah, Jaakko is in the pits, so he's going to drop back out of the points, I feel. with that. Rob van Starkenburg then into the last points paying position. I heard a few people on the broadcast saying that Morgan Moran had got this sewn up. Oh no, he's not, because this is going to get very close towards the end. Huis is lapping a second a lap faster. There are 13 laps to go. The gap is only 7.7 seconds. This is going to get interesting.
Yeah, the gap is melting away at this point, but it's also fair to say Morgan knows that the strategy of Bono is that he came in 5 or 6 laps later than Morant, and he's going to push now. Morgan might as well say, okay, I'll let the gap decrease till about 3 or 4 seconds, and then I'm the one that's going to push. And my tires are not as badly degraded. I'm sure Morgan is using his head in this, and it's also a little bit of a psychological battle, because both drivers are within a few tenths of each other in the lap times. It's just a matter of how they can control their tire degradation.
They certainly are, but it was another second on that lap from Bono Huis. He's got the gap down to 7.3 seconds.
Indeed.
This is going to get very close. De Wit, by the way, is now attacking Jack Keithley, I believe.
Let's see if he is and how he's going on.
He's getting very close, and we know that car is very quick in a straight line. Peter Helmbro retired about 10 laps ago, by the way, so he's out of the race. We've got 19 cars left now.
Let's go on board with the Wit, because the DRS combined with the top speed of the FTS combines magic. And we see this magic here, the Wit flying past, and is able to close the door even, because he was already past Keithley. And now Keithley has to start looking for a miracle, because he is on the harder compound. Although during the race it has shown that Patrick is not really taking care of his tires as other drivers are. It's fair to say.
Yeah, I don't know if I just saw that, but Jack Keithley, as they were coming into the braking zone, and I know that Jack probably feels a little bit hard done by from Patrick a couple of weeks ago, but nevertheless, I'm sure I saw Keithley pull back over to the left a little bit and take, I'm not sure it was a swipe at Patrick, it was almost I'm not going to let you pass easily moment, and that was a little bit uncool. Don't like to see that. I hope it was just a braking moment.
You have to be a little bit rough from time to time. There's nothing wrong with that as long as there's no contact. And it's interesting to see that Atse is a bit struggling on his tires already. 37.8 with his tire. He just slowed down half a second compared to the lap he did before. But he's not in a threat by Ivar Calames, who is 25 seconds behind him. So he's pretty secure for the podium if nothing weird happens to him. At the moment the battle for first position is still not over, because Bono is in with the 7-second mark of Morgan Morant. Bono's last lap was a 36.8 and Morgan, his last lap was a 37.1. So that's another 3 tenths that Bono has taken out of him.
It is, but it won't be enough at that rate. So Morgan Moran has obviously stepped it up a little bit, so that he is now, and again Bono Huis only gained a matter of hundredths in the middle sector. So maybe now Morgan Moran has said, right, okay, yeah, you've had your fun, you're starting to close in on me, I'm going to put the pedal down now, and I'm going to make sure that I get this second victory.
Indeed. And interesting to see is the battle that's shaping up for the 9th position between Van Starkenburg and Carlos Martin. Both are on the medium compound with relatively new tires. I think we will see some DRS action on the back straight in half a minute.
Yeah, I think we will. Be interested to see where Calames finishes in this race. It's a much stronger weekend from Precision Motorsports this time out. Of course, Bono finished second last time out, so that wasn't a problem. But Calames didn't finish the race and had never looked particularly comfortable the whole weekend in Bahrain. He qualified 11th, as he did here, of course. But he qualified 12th, in fact, today, so one worse. But in the race as well, Calames just didn't look comfortable in Bahrain. He looks a lot better today. But is he going to now fall back in the last 10 laps on slightly older tyres than all those cars behind him, because they've all got slightly newer tyres, and if Berliak can get past him, you then feel, is Patrick De Wit going to catch him, and Jack Keithley as well? So he's just got to watch his tyres over these last few laps, Calames, and try not to drop back too far.
Indeed. Yeah, I see that Carlos Martin has had a major mistake. Yeah, oh my god, Carlos Martin going off.
Lost it into the final corner. That's an interesting one. We've not seen, I mean, it is a heavy braking zone there, so it is easy to do, but we've not seen many drivers going off there this weekend. So an interesting moment for Carlos Martin, and one that he won't be happy about. That puts Jaakko on his debut back up into 10th place and a point.
Yeah, but this will be reckoning for his tires as well. I would not be surprised if Carlos will have to make another pit stop, because that would easily be 10 to 20% of his tires that's just gone, and they are flat spotted. So really unfortunate for the young Spaniard for Crown 7 Networks.
Yeah, as Bono Guis, again, only 0.3 of a second on Morgan Moran on that last lap. There's 9 laps to go. It's doable. And don't forget that if he does get within 1 second, he will get the DRS.
Indeed,
but at the moment,
precision
Morgan is making it very hard for him.
Yeah, but the precision is not showing signs of weakness here. He's still looking strong according to the lap times. And still opening with a 25.3 in the 47th lap of this race, and is still taking Moran sector by sector. So really curious what we can expect the next 9 laps.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very close, as Berliak now is right on the gearbox of Ivar Calamise for 4th place. There's 9 laps to go. He's got a little bit of time to think about this and get the move done. There's a bit of a gap back to Patrick de Wit, so perhaps for Berliak here it'd be best just to size up where Calamise is weak. Think about where it is most likely that he's going to be able to make a move, and then decide that, because the problem is that we mentioned the faster than speed cars are quick in the straight line, but we also mentioned that the precision motorsports cars are, and that's going to be a problem for Berliak, because it might mean that he can't pass Calamise in the DRS zones, which is where you'd normally think about it. So he's maybe got to look here at where Calamise is weak round the rest of the lap and think about then where he can pass him.
Yeah, Ivar Calamise is a bit, I wouldn't say greedy on the back shifts, but his engine certainly revving high. In the meanwhile, Rob van Starkenburg is joining Keithley and the Parisians for the battle for 7th position. I don't know how much life Rob has left in the medium tires that he's currently on, but Keithley and both Keithley and Parisians are on the harder compound. So let's see if they. If Rob can take them on the straight with the DRS here.
Yeah, Peter Berliak is now looking at a move, and he needs to get a good run out of this final corner, which he does, and it was a very good run out of the final corner as Ivar Calamise goes across the track to defend.
Yeah, he made the one move.
And down the inside from Berliak. Oh, it's close, but I think he's got it. I think he's got it. Can Calamise get back up the inside? Yes, he can. Oh, is there going to be contact? No, there's not. They just leave enough room. And Berliak has got past Ivar Calamise and into 4th place. As Rob van Starkenburg passes Parisius as well. But we'll go back to that in a minute, because here comes Calamise back on Berliak. And all this is Patrick de Wit is rubbing his hands behind, because he's only a second or 2 behind them now as they continue to battle. So Calamise takes 4th place back.
Yeah, indeed, and as that battle was going on, Rob in the meanwhile took 8th place, like you said, and now is looking forward to take Keithley as well. Both know each other obviously quite well, but will there be team orders here?
Well, that'd be interesting to see, both in the GT Omega racing cars, of course, and Van Starkenburg clearly faster at this point in the race than Keithley.
Yeah, it is fair to say, to let him through and try to battle Patrick even. Because he, I think, in terms of tire degradation, Van Starkenburg certainly has the edge over Patrick in conserving tires.
You would think so, but I have to say Patrick de Wit has been very quick, almost on the pace of the leaders over these last couple of laps. And that
but he pitted a lot. I think his tires will fall down, unfortunately. I'm not happy to say it. I hope I'm wrong, but he pitted a lot. And so he's sliding a bit. Well, let's see how it's going. At this moment, Rob is trying to look for a move onto his teammate Jack Keithley. Keithley going to the outside. I'm not sure if he's defending. No, he's just doing the sensible thing and letting his teammate pass for a better team result. So great team coordination there.
Yeah, it was. And you may have noticed behind Jaakko has managed to get past Jim Parisius as well for 9th position. So that is a good move by him, and he's going to be on Keithley now. I don't know what it is about this circuit, but Jack Keithley really doesn't like it, does he? Because we mentioned at the start in the warm-up that he has never done well here, and he's dropping back fast at the moment, and well, he's in danger here of at least dropping to 10th, and Carlos Martini's only about 5 seconds behind that, so Keithley's got to watch here that he might end up out of the points again if he's not careful.
Indeed, and as Morant crosses the straight, he is within...
Patrick de Wit, sorry Chris, Patrick de Wit has got up the inside of Peter Berliak into turn 9 there, I think it is, and he's into 5th position, sorry. And Ivar Calamise has got a bit of breathing space from that, because while those two were fighting, he's been able to pull out. So de Wit now up into 5th position and will charge after Calamise. 4th is going to be the best he can get, because it's about 30 seconds forward from Calamise to Kirchhoff. But de Wit is really flying at the moment. But as you said, he has pitted early, so will he go? His tyres go away in the last couple of laps?
Yeah, that's certainly the question. But at the moment he seems to get closer to Ivar Calamise. Let's hope we can get a fight on our hands there. But it's not fair to say that Peter Berliak is already a bird that's flown away. He's looking to take that 5th spot back from de Wit.
Yeah, I think sometimes you do wonder when a driver has got a few penalty points hanging over his head.
Keithley is getting dived by Jaakko, but they let each other live. And Jaakko is taking 8th place from Keithley. Keithley now dropping back a lot and has to be worried about Parisi's closing in on him.
Yeah, as we said a couple of laps ago, Jack Keithley now is dropping further down the order. And for whatever reason, Sepang is not a circuit he gets on well with. Patrick de Wit, just looking at the car, I thought for a moment there, the DRS seemed to be open through turn 4, but that can't have been right. That's the car working well, and he's closing down on Calamise as they go through turn 9. What's the gap? It's 1.5 seconds, so he's not really gained an awful lot on this lap, but of course the part where Patrick is really strong is at the end on the 2 straights, so that's where we'll probably see him close down the gap a little bit more.
Yeah, it's curious to see what these last 5 laps will bring, but certainly no boring racing here. The pack is reasonably close to each other if you look at the 5th, 6th, 7th spot. Because Jaakko is trying to get some pressure onto Rob van Starkenburg to claim 7th spot, and if he continues with this pace, he will have his chance at least within 5 laps.
He certainly will. Jack Keithley, by the way, is about to come under attack again. He's got it coming from behind him all the time at the moment, because Jim Parisis is in the DRS zone, although he didn't get a particularly good exit, so I don't think he's going to make it down into turn 1 this time. But Jack Keithley really is falling away in these latter stages of the race, and that's surprising. But, you know, sometimes if you don't have a good feeling at a track and you don't like a track, it can just...
And the Wit spins! His engine is off, I believe. Oh, Patrick, his engine collapsed. Patrick de Wit is out of this race. How unfortunate for him. Drove a brilliant race.
And I just say, though, he did well there because he pressed escape very quickly. He knew he was on the racing line, and he did manage to get out of the way, which is good. So at least he didn't cause problems for anyone else. The gap at the front is still 5 seconds, so I think Morgan Moran, now barring any mistakes, has got this under control. But that is a real shame for Patrick de Wit, who had a fairly clean race today as well, and looked to be on for maybe even 4th if he could have caught Calamise, which would have been a fantastic result. But the engines failed, and that is really, really unfortunate to see. And well, Patrick was obviously on full attack today, because I think everybody was going with similar radiator settings this weekend from what I can gather, so that is really unfortunate to see, and obviously
it is
on attacking the gears a little bit too much over the course of the race.
Yeah, and with 4 laps to go, there's still 5.2 seconds to spare between the gap on Morant and Bono Huis. Altse is driving after that in 3rd position, locking in and securing the last podium spot here. But behind that, there's still some battling going on.
Yeah, it's pretty close between Parisis and Keithley. Of course, Keithley will probably get points now, because with de Wit going out, the lowest I think he's going to finish is 10th. I'm fairly sure that Dianka Stadanov can't catch him, that's for certain. So Jack Keithley is just going to try and hold off these positions in the final. I don't think Carlos Martin's actually catching fast enough. Martin Godsby has not had a great day. He's down in 13th. He's just been passed by Blair Disley, in fact, so he's now down to 13th place. And his pace has been nowhere near as good as it was 2 weeks ago this weekend, Chris.
Indeed. But yeah, let's see how he can finish this race. Obviously a scoring position would be nice, as Calamace is struggling with his tires at this moment. And if this continues, then Briljak might be able to close in. There are still a few laps to go. Although we have had 56 laps almost, it seems like it's just been half an hour since we started.
Time flies when you're having fun, and certainly it's been a great race today as well, and it just makes it easier to watch, makes it go that little bit quicker, which sounds ironic, but that's the way it is. And Ivar Calamace, well, let's look at the lap times here. It's a 1:37.7 from Calamace, and a 1:37.6 I think from Briljak, so not that much difference.
Yeah, as Morgan tries to lap a back marker, let's hope it doesn't create any problems for him.
Yeah, we'd hope so. It shouldn't do. I mean, Morgan Moran, yeah, and the back marker very nicely gets out of the way there. It was good driving from one of the Venus Project racing cars, Antonio Kolarec, I think, who has been a great driver actually in recent years. In actual fact, he's brought himself under attack from Eros Masciuli, though, by doing that. May have been a bit too kind. He goes into the corner. We'll just look at this from the back markers as they fight for position. And those positions, of course, will make a difference in the championship, because the higher up you finish, if you've got no points for your team, then it's obviously the best finish then that decides the championship position, as it does in all forms of motorsport. So that will be what they're battling for this afternoon, Kolarec and Masciuli, although those teams may get points as the season goes on. We'll see how they can improve in their setup information and just getting closer to the cars in front. But Morgan Moran, well, he lost a little bit of time to Bono Huis there, but the gap's down to 4.4 seconds. I don't think with 2 laps to go, though, that we're liable to see Bono catch Morgan Moran. I think Moran now could pretty much cruise to victory here.
Yeah, certainly, and then it would have been a controlled race, although it's over until the first driver crosses the finish flag. Of course, we saw the unfortunate finish of the Wits race. He will be classified, though, not that he will get points for that, but he's in the 90%, I believe.
Yeah, he certainly is. We do say in Britain, actually, I'll give you an expression now, it's not over till the fat lady sings. I'm not quite sure why they say that, but they do.
Yeah, we don't have a fat lady singing here in FSR, though. no ladies at all, and at one point that's just fine.
Yes, it is. There have been women involved in FSR in the past. I think a few years ago there was actually a female runner of one of the servers that we had at one point, so I don't know if that's before your time, Chris, but I'm fairly sure we did. So, you know, there's certainly been people involved in the past that have been important to FSR, and we've got to give a shout out as well to the admins, because they do a great job here. Obviously our president this year, John Eric Saxon, then we've got the race directors who give up an hour and a half of their time when they're not racing themselves to make sure that the race goes smoothly. So of course those guys working really hard. Our own Jaakko Mikkonen, who doesn't get much of a venture, doesn't speak a lot, Jaakko, but he's back behind the scenes operating cameras, so he does a good job as well. And there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to make these races happen and to bring you the fantastic racing that we've seen today.
And Carlos Martin admitting he was busy 3 till 4 hours with post-race checks. And yeah, that just shows you that a lot of people want the best for this league. Now we have 1 lap to go, I believe, and the lead is still in hands of Frenchman Morgan Morand of Crown 7 Networks, followed by Bono Huis from Precision Motorsport, and Atse Kerkhoff from the Chronic Racing team. Yeah, seems should be happy with the podium, I guess.
Yeah, he certainly is, as Morgan Moran is going to come down the back straight I'll tell you what, Chris, if you thought that the director had a problem in the Pro Series, I suspect that the Ace Series, they're going to have to take a week off work the way that went yesterday. So,
indeed.
Yeah, Morgan Moran, though, coming through the final corner, and he's going to make it 2 out of 2. It's been a flawless drive from Morgan Moran yet again. He wins the FSR Malaysian Grand Prix in style. Bono Huis is going to come home in second, and he'll be pleased that he's closed the gap. It certainly wasn't as comfortable as it was in Bahrain for Moran, but Huis is second again as Atsay Kirchhoff were waiting for him, and there he is. A great result for the Chronic Racing team. They will be on the podium, and Alexei Uusijärvelä, as he's spun out.
He has spun out. And a lot
on
of
the final lap.
Yeah, he seems to be out of the race. He might be able to finish, but he's in 10th.
I think that's an engine failure. Is that just grass? No, it is just grass. Somebody else has been off. It's Martin as well.
It's Carlos Martin too. What a chaos at the last lap. While Calames finishes in 4th position with Briljak in 5th, Rob van Starkenburg is going to finish in 6th place, next to a back marker that's almost pushing him off the track. Keithley, his teammate, behind him in 7th. Paris is in 8th. And Jaakko here in 9th position now. And 2 drivers, Jaakko and Martin, just cruising to the finish with broken cars.
It almost seemed like nobody wanted that last point. And it's everybody that come across the line, they've ended up finishing in pretty much the same places as they were anyway. So, although I think Uusijärvelä had got past Keithley, hadn't he? So apparently there may have been an incident between Uusijärvelä and Van Starkenburg. So what it was looking like the stewards would have a night off because it was a pretty clean race, but unfortunately I think at the end they may have something to look at.
Yeah, I'm just gonna rewind that moment, but certainly a really weird situation with Martin and Jaakko. Now let's see what happened with Jaakko. Jaakko lost the car and crashed into another car. That will certainly have a tail on its end.
Yeah, it will, because of course that would have been Van Starkenburg. Luckily enough, I don't think it affected Van Starkenburg because he finished where he was, so that's good news. But Uusijärvelä will probably find himself on the receiving end of a little bit more than a slapped wrist from the stewards, because we've seen that the stewards are prepared to, they're going to make sure that they take a hard line with drivers, which is the way we want it. We want it to be, of course, competitive in Formula Sim racing. We also want it to be fair. And Uusijärvelä may have to talk to the stewards about that one because it just...
but it was a definite brake failure from him, and it was in no way his intention. That was pretty clear. But then I'm wondering what happened to Carlos Martin, who just lost the car. Yeah, he just basically spinned, Carlos Martin. So he lost ninth place, back to Jaakko.
Perhaps he got a bit overexcited at getting another point.
Might as well been, but nevertheless he does get a point after the incident he was involved in earlier on. So nice top 10 though.
Yeah, it certainly was. So let's give you a rundown then of the finishing order. Morgan Moran takes his second victory of the year, and Bono Huis is second again. Atsay Kirchhoff put up a big fight early on, but dropped back later on with a very strange decision to take the hard tyres for the last stint, and that meant that he finished third, and in the end 12 seconds back from Bono Huis after fighting with him for the entire race. Calames was fourth. A much better performance by the second precision driver this weekend. Peter Briljak in 5th place, Van Starkenburg 6th, Jack Keithley finished in 7th in the other GTO Maker car in a much better weekend for him at the Malaysia circuit. Jim Paresis was 8th. Alexei Uusijärvelä takes 2 points on debut in 9th place, but I suspect he'll be a little bit disappointed with that after qualifying in 2nd position. Carlos Martin gets the final point of the day in 10th position. Dejan Kostadanov finishes 11th. Blair Disley 12th. Martin Gosby in 13th, who had a day to forget today. Adrian Rodriguez 14th. Antonio Kolarec 15th. Masciuli 16th. Dino Paolini 17th. And Oslakovic 18th. Unfortunately, during the race, we also lost 8 drivers. The retirements were Patrick de Wit with an engine failure, Peter Elmbro, Zuhats Kaibo, Ville Leppeler, David Greco, Mark Alberts, Matt Sentel and Marcel van der Linden all retired through various incidents through the race. Helmbro with a suspension problem, so that suggests that they were all driving mistakes, but that is the order then for today. So Morgan Moran then takes a 14-point lead over Bono Huis in the championship, but luckily for the championship, Chris, it did look like Huis was an awful lot closer today.
Yeah, he certainly maintained a lot of pressure on Morgan, and he didn't have the gap that he had 2 weeks ago. So yet again another victory, but more of Bono is showing signs of yeah, well, not really coming back. I mean, you can never underestimate him, but he definitely closed the gap to Morgan.
Yeah, and it's going to be important over the season. We talked about consistency earlier on. It said that in the white race that, you know, one retirement could change this complexion of the championship completely, and that those two are going to be looking at that, especially with them finishing first and second both in both the races. There's no room for error, is there, from either of them?
No, indeed, and it's this is indeed the season's perspective you have to maintain, and it's race for race, and well, it's curious to see how we will be in 3 weeks.
Yes, the next race will be in China, Shanghai International Circuit in 3 weeks' time. Make sure you're there with us. For now, though, thanks to Chris for helping me out today and getting me through the race, and it's goodbye from both of us. We'll see you in China in 3 weeks' time.